All right, everybody. Hello, welcome. A little bit of a weird stream intro today, given everything that we've been going through. If you were here just about 30 or so minutes ago, you would have seen that the Riot client was, of course, doing what it does best, which is not working. But we've managed to get everything back up and running. We are into the draft. I am HorizonCasts and joined by Matrixsenpai. And a little bit writing on this match, Matrix. I think so for the Bush Wookies, they would love to play upset tonight. The Silvermanes, they would like to remain undefeated.
Yeah, we definitely love to see it when one of our top three teams loses a match. And you know what? I think Bush Wookies has shown some pretty decent signs of life. So I'd like to see them take it to Silvermanes in at least a 2-1 fashion.
Yeah. I think for Bush Wookies, as has been the case with the other teams that are on the top of the standings, Baggy Pampers and BBC, I think for Silvermanes, it's trying to find a way to combat them, in these team fights, find a way to get advantages wherever possible. I think like Silvermanes, they're a good combination similar to the way BBC and BP plays, where they have standout laners, but then they're also really good in those skirmishes and in those team fight scenarios. And so for Bush Wookies, it's finding a solution to at least one of those problems.
For sure. I definitely think that top lane is going to be a bit rough between Polaris and Huli. Huli definitely putting some extra work into his champion pool, and we'll see how much it shows. But of course, Kai or Dank Pingu down there in the bottom lane, absolutely ruling the support pool. And mid lane, RX Genetics is definitely a very solid laner. So we'll have to see if they can upset one of those lanes and start snowballing that into the rest of the game.
We're going to start to see first couple picks. Wukong, Nami for Bush Wookies, Silvermanes. They're going to go the Caitlyn Soraka. I don't see the Soraka a whole lot with the Caitlyn anymore, I think. It's not a champion that we've seen be super popular, but I think given the Nami on the other side, it is a decent answer.
Absolutely, for sure. And I'm definitely interested to see some of these bans. Bush Wookies paying the proper respects to the Smolder. I've talked about this a little bit on stream, but so many teams not banning the Smolder on red side when it is up and available, and they are not able to pick it. But Bush Wookies paying the proper respects is going to ban that champion out.
Interested to see what this third round of bans is going to be. Is I like that Lucian coming through for Bush Wookies. I like that they're going to get themselves some early bot lane aggression. I think Nami Lucian also just a common sense duo. If you are going to play the Lucian, there's really the only one support that you want to play with it. And so I like the direction that Bush Wookies are going. But this also means that Silvermanes can look to punish that a little bit, especially towards the mid to late game. Because Lucian does have great damage, but does fall off once you get to the latter portion of the match.
Yeah, for sure. Nami having so many good pairings in that support role. Definitely really good with a lot of hyper carries and scaling carries as well. So definitely a good pickup for the side of Bush Wookies. Caitlyn is a decent ADC and can outrange the Lucian, but we'll have to see how that Soraka pairing works out for the side of Silvermanes. Will be a lot of top lane focus in the second round of bans as well. Shen and Renekton banned out for the side of Bush Wookies. Cassante banned out for the side of Silvermanes. So really putting some pressure on that top lane pool.
Silvermanes, I think with Polaris, they have quite a bit of draft flexibility. This is a guy that plays just about all of the mainstay champions. Sion, Ornn, Gnar, Renekton, Cassante, Mordekaiser, Urgot, all these champions that we've seen very heavily within the TLS, just across all of our leagues. And so I think for Bush Wookies is just trying to make sure, like if for Huli, that you get him a matchup that can go even. I think one of the things that we've been critical of when we've casted a lot of the Bush Wookies games is that it seems like Huli has been left topside without any resources to kind of help him out, and so he's been punished very heavily in those matchups, and we've seen them kind of struggle once that lane starts to go down. And so for Bush Wookies, I'd like to see at least a little bit of investment paid up there, either through some jungle pressure or maybe even an early lane swap. Maybe just try and flip-flop the lanes and get some pressure. Just get some movement around the map so that way you can pull Silvermanes off their game a little bit. Is Garen going to be the answer to the Sion?
Yeah, Sion definitely what you were talking about, able to kind of self-sustain, really just wants to kind of get XP, get a little bit of stacking going. Garen, though, really has it all to do in this top lane. Polaris is going to have to put in the work, and Xin Zhao, if he comes up there, is going to have to help that lane out, because otherwise Sion's going to get very scary very quickly.
Yep. All right, gonna be the final selection there for Silvermane's in the mid lane. Is it going to be against the Annie? It in fact will be. Bush Wookiees gonna lock that one in. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Annie mid lane. I know that a lot of people are just because of the different trades that she gets and like obviously her range, but I'm not the biggest fan of that champion.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of it either. Both mid laners going to be Malignance users, and Annie a little bit better Malignance user, but in general, I think just Malignance users in general feel very weak right now to me. And Annie also feels just generally weak. She can have some good moments, some good flash R stuns, but does not feel really relevant in the current meta, and so not, like you said, a fan of this pickup here for the side of Bush Wookies.
Walk me through your expectations for Silvermane's draft. Because to me, I think it's a pretty sensible draft. There's a lot of easy pieces to execute on here. But like, what are some of your expectations, especially given what Bush Wookies have drafted into it?
Definitely some decent engage coming out from the side of Silvermane's. Of course, Xin Zhao wants to go in, Garen wants to go in, Ari can ultimate over the top of that. And then, of course, you have Caitlyn who can kind of stand behind all of those. But they really need to be careful because this Wukong on the side of Bush Wookies can run into the backline, into the Caitlyn Soraka, make life very difficult for them. A lot of good disengage coming out from the Nami, from the Sion, and of course Annie making those engages very difficult with that stun. Sion kind of standing between his team and the enemy. So a bit of back and forth for both of these teams, I think, but we'll have to see how this draft shakes out.
Yeah, I think kind of my concerns, obviously, for Bush Wookies is just that we've seen them have some pretty decent drafts before in some of their previous matches, and they haven't really executed on some of them the way that we would expect they would. And when you're looking at a draft like this that is more early game centric, with the Lucian, the Nami, that's obviously going to be a bot lane that you're drafting to get early prio there. You want to play through that lane, which makes sense given how important that lane has been over really the entirety of the season. But as with anything, it comes down to execution, and I think one of the things that I've been concerned about is just that Bush Wookies haven't shown us that. So for this, they really need to have a convincing game, number one, because Silvermanes is a team that's very difficult to put away traditionally. This is a team that knows how to come back. They've performed fairly well this season, and so interested to see how the early game will go.
Yeah, I'm absolutely interested to see how this early game will go. I really think it's going to be critical in some of these mid-game team fights for Tacos to find a good Wukong ultimate to be able to get onto that Caitlyn, onto the Soraka especially. Zank Pingu is going to need to do some good kiting on the side of Silvermanes to really make this composition work.
Yeah. You talked about something.
And of course,
oh, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, of course, MZC all with it all to do on the Nami as well, keeping that Lucian and the Annie safe as well.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned in the early draft where you were talking about Huli, and you talked about making sure that he can have an effect in that if he's not managed in that lane, he'll start to kind of run away with it just because he's playing the Scion, which is the natural late game scaling champ. I'm curious, what else can Bush Wookies do to kind of enable him and get him more involved in the early to mid game?
I definitely think some attention towards this top side from the Wukong, kind of keeping that Garen down. Garen can be definitely a scary champion, and it is, like I said, going to be a little bit on MCC to keep this Lucian safe, but we're seeing a little bit of fighting here on this bottom side. But going back to your point, I think definitely getting the Scion involved, maybe some ultimates to the mid lane or a roam down towards a Drake spawn, maybe second or third Drake for the side of Bush Wookies, kind of getting that early pressure, allowing them to take some objectives and getting Huli some extra stacks on that Scion.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to point out too in that top side matchup is Polaris taking that Ignite. So to me, that pretty much signals that he's trying to play aggressively onto Huli and punish the fact that the Scion is not super strong in the early game, and just wants to just kind of push him in and have that kill threat. And I think Garen is one of those champions that, he's kind of innocuous in that you don't think it's going to get ahead and you think that it's manageable, but it also feels like sometimes that champion that if it gets one or two early kills, that it becomes really difficult for any champion to match it in a side lane. It's kind of just one of those. I can't remember who said it one time, but there was. I think it was maybe. I think maybe it was. Oh, I'm trying to remember his name now. A coach and a analyst for former analyst for Clown. LS. LS kind of. Oh, never mind. We're gonna have first blood. Silvermane kill goes on to Demps, and turning that early game matchup right on its head. But the point I was gonna make was Ellis had once mentioned that Garen is kind of one of those skill check champions where, like, if you cannot consistently outlane the Garen and perform well against him just because his kit is more limited, then it's kind of a signal to, you know, maybe how weak you are in that lane, not only as a champion but as a player. And so I think for me, like Polaris, he's throwing out the skill check towards Huli. It's how good are you? You know, I'm on the Garen, you're on the Scion. You should be able to beat me in terms of the late game matchup, but it's just whether or not you're able to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And as we see a little bit of action here, Albi having to run away from Tacos. Looks like they were fighting over that top lane Scuttle Crab, but Taco's very low. Will get taken down by RX Genetics.
Yeah, not sure why he overstayed his... Not sure why he overstayed his welcome. Ooh, double flash forward. Albi managing to get away tempo. Wanted to trade his flash for that and potentially lock down the jungler. Not able to do so.
I think you're absolutely right, though, right? Polaris knows that he needs to go aggressive. That's why he took the TP. He really needs to be the one to outlane the Scion. And Scion, as I mentioned before on broadcast, very happy to just kind of sit back to collect whatever XP and farm he can. Kind of like an Ornn, really any other tank top laner, not really needing to do a whole lot. And so the onus is really on the more aggressive laner here. In this case, Polaris taking that Garen. He is going to have the sustain and will be able to outlast Huli a lot in this lane, given that he has no mana constraints. But if he wants to get the kills, if he wants to get ahead, if he wants to do more than just go even, he has to be aggressive, and that Ignite is going to help him out in that quest.
Well, let's see where these junglers are going to start to rotate through as they get closer and closer level to 6. Obviously, the early trade has not gone Bush Wookies' way. In the mid lane, just weird to me that 3 Tacos stayed that long. There was really no reason to get that close. They were always going to make it underneath the turret. So it's just like once you kind of get the wave pushed in and get a little bit of room to work with in that mid lane, like maybe leave. So I'm not sure really that they're going to be looking back on that and think that that was worth it. And now my feeling
I absolutely agree.
And I think my feeling with this too is as long as Demps and Dink Pingu can do a decent job of keeping this bot wave mostly centered, not getting pushed in, like it's going to invite a gank from Albi, which is what we're about to see here. Demps getting a little bit aggressive, but it's still full sums on the bot side for Bush Wookies, so they don't really have too much to worry about. They can just walk this out. But the pressure, that should just mean that Silvermanes get first access to the Dragon as Huli now going to be forced to flash out that Ignite. Combat Summoner getting its full value.
Yeah, surprised that Huli did not have the shield there to kind of mitigate some of that damage, but did get punished. And what you were saying earlier about that mid lane play, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that really there was no reason for Tacos to go back in on that play. He did create some pressure, was able to just walk up towards that top scuttle and get the extra farm that he needed, but instead allowing that early kill to go over to the side of RX Genetics, getting him a little bit ahead and losing out on that scuttle, allowing Albi to double scuttle as well.
Double scuttle always feels nice if you have the tempo to grab it. It's not necessarily the biggest lead in the world, but, you know, it's just like a little bit of a denial thing. It's almost like a skill check. It's like, haha, you know, it was good enough for my pathing to go grab both of these kind of pseudo-neutral objectives. You know, I'm going to be able to get a little bit of the extra cash, get a little bit of extra XP, and be the first one level 6. And I think it's important for Silvermanes, too, like, making sure that, like, Albi's being you know, aggressive in terms of having itemization level disadvantages. Tempo gonna throw down the timbers, but that's not gonna be enough. Thrown down late. RX Genetics cleans it up. Albi there for a little bit of emotional support. And the Angry Bear in the mid lane not gonna be doing anything more than just knocking down the health bar a little bit. So Silvermane's making all their early moves, and this is what we were worried about. And Silvermane, they drafted a composition that's not supposed to be active this early, but they are getting the better of these trades.
Yeah, and if you're the side of Bush Wookies, you need to start worrying a little bit. Your early game composition is not working out the way that you expected it to, and it's really some missteps on the part of multiple players not knowing exactly when and where they're allowed to be. Brucey going down early in that fight to the side of, or excuse me, MCC going early for the side of Bush Wookies, and then in the mid lane, Tacos just misstepping against RX Genetics.
I will say,
and honestly, these are these are things that Bush Wookies really need to clean up if they want to be kind of one of those top teams, if they want to be in the same space as Baggy Pampers, Silvermanes, and BBC. Can't be making those mistakes against teams like this.
I agree. Well, I mean, that's the concerning thing is the fact that they drafted such an early game composition with the attempt to try and get early tempo on Silvermanes. And I mean, again, against a composition that is supposed to be slower, you know, Caitlyn Soraka, it's not going to necessarily be like the most aggressive lane in the world, but it has plenty of sustain and stuff like that. But you should, as Lucian Nami, like have control over that lane. Yes, you know, it is annoying that Caitlyn has the range and has the sustain with Soraka, but your trades are so much more aggressive, especially with the Nami paired alongside it. And so to me, it is a little bit surprising that already that bot lane matchup has gone the way it is. You know, there's a significant CS lead starting to be built up for Demps, you know, and I think that as a side effect too, and I'm curious what you think about this, the fact that they're able to kind of go even or I guess even win that lane without too much of a visit from Albi frees up the Xin Zhao to kind of just go wherever else he wants on the map without having to pay too much attention bot side. So it's an additional resource, and it's something that I think Bush Wookies are going to have to navigate over the next couple minutes as we're staying in the lane state. Now, once they get to the team fight spot, maybe it gets a little bit better, but right now it just doesn't feel good.
Agreed, and it's definitely not going to feel good for tempo in this mid lane, having to give up multiple summoners as well as a kill towards RX Genetics. Two kills and a completed Malignance for this Ahri. Tempo is going to be really far behind in his tempo on that Annie.
All right, let's start to take stock of some of the early itemizations. As you highlighted earlier, going to be 2 Malignants. I think the phrase you said was abusers? Malignance abusers. Oh, Cruci going to throw out the ultimate. Oh, but does call it off as Soraka ult's going to be thrown down just to keep him healthy. But I think back to the point I was making a minute ago, is you said that both of these mid laners will be Malignance abusers. Well, RX Genetics with 2 kills going to be the first to complete that item, so going to be in a really nice spot. And talking about something else that Bush Wookies are going to have to be cognizant of is understanding that RX Genetics will in fact roam down whenever he wants to. Uh-oh, Cruci steps on the trap, not what you want. There's no cupcake there for you, my friend. Those are only for Vi, and Dim's now going to start to chase both of them down with that range. The auto attack's going to the back of the fish. The ultimate going to come out. Not going to be enough to knock him down, but it will be enough to chunk both of the Bush Wookies bot laners out of that lane.
Yeah, and Grizzly also very low on mana, not going to be able to stay in this lane much longer than this wave. The Demps is pushing in right now, but what you said earlier about the Ahri being able to roam, she's absolutely doing so, and Silvermanes are able to pick up those grubs on the top side. Complete neutral control for them in this early game. Again, not what you want to see if you are looking to push this tempo early.
Let's see where Bush Wookies can try and make a play. There was maybe a look mid lane, but that didn't amount to anything. RX Genetics obviously going to be very safe underneath the turret, had full sums, so it was never really any danger. Matrix, I'm curious. I mean, the pace of the game right now, obviously, it's very Silvermane's favored. Like, they're very much in control of the game, and I think as long as they continue to play the way they have, you know, that's not really going to change. For the next couple of minutes, I think we'll probably get 1 or 2 more drags, barring anything crazy. We'll get a couple more drags before that starts to change. But for Bush Wookie side, I mean, it's not the craziest gold lead right now. It's only a couple thousand. It's still very early. What can they do to kind of get back in this?
I think realistically right now you need to wait for Silvermanes to make a mistake and capitalize on it. If you stabilize this game a little bit, it makes things a little bit easier. Ooh. But Albi and Genetics now down here.
Yeah. 3 tacos is showing.
Genetics getting very low.
Cruci's going to throw out the ultimate. Timbers over the top. That's going to be 1 down. This might be the team fight they need. Albi forced to flash out. Second activation of the Cyclone from 3 tacos. It's a little bit of a split fight. Dank Pengu and Dimps couldn't really do a whole lot there. We're a little bit late to that fight. The wraparound not working for Silvermanes. And Bush Wookies, they get themselves a nice little fight.
Yeah, this is exactly the mistake that I was talking about, right? You have your bot lane who is staying a little bit far back to push up that lane, not in communication with the mid and jungle. And the mid and jungle also spotted out by Tacos earlier on that play, trying to contest around that Gromp and not being able to get it, but it causes a severe misstep from the side of Silvermanes.
I think good comms, likely by Bush Wookies as well, seeing that out. Good ward placement, and so then just good timing on the rotations to make sure that Silvermans couldn't get that play for free. And it was weird because once you saw Albi and RX Genetics cutting through that tri-bush, you saw Bush Wookies kind of reposition a little bit to get closer towards the tower and invite them in. And then I think once Silvermans realized that they were getting pinched there in that tri-bush, they couldn't really get out. And then it was just a great engage by 3 Tacos to make sure that they locked both those guys down. And importantly, too, getting the shutdown off of RX Genetics. That's a lot of gold being given back over, so it'd be nice for them. Ooh, Polaris got a little bit fancy flash and the Ignite plus the ult. Tried to knock down Huli on that top side, but nothing doing there. As the 2 Malignant users are trying to kill each other with this item. Tempo forced to flash out RX Genetics. Oh, just manages to miss with the orb. If that had hit, that likely would have been the kill there, but a lot used by Tempo just to survive.
Yeah, Tempo will have TP to be able to get back to this lane very quickly. Did not have Tibbers in that play. And that's actually something that I just realized was that Ari did have the ultimate on that wraparound play, did not elect to use it and just got hit by the Tibbers. I think it's very difficult in that play. I'll be also getting hit, but I'll be electing to go for this second Drake here as mid lane and bot lane for Bush Wookies on recall.
It's just, I think, I find how funny it is, just like the Garen models. Oh, never mind. I was going to make a point about how funny it was to see Garen spinning that fast, but instead we'll be talking about how fast this Wukong is spinning. Double Cyclone, going to be knocking down 3 kills. Silvermans, uh-oh, this early game advantage that you had is starting to go away. Cruci going to be the last one to get a kill. Knocks down RX Genetics. Uh-oh, Bush Wookies, they're starting to get themselves a little bit of a lead. 2 team fights in a row going their way. Matrix, I'm smelling an upset.
I am also smelling an upset, and honestly, Silvermane should be incredibly upset. This mid-game is starting to go the exact opposite of how it should be. I mean, this game in and of itself has gone the exact opposite of how it should be, right? We predicted that Bush Wookies would get some early tempo going, and then Silvermanes could have an opportunity later on to make some plays, but unfortunately it's just been going the complete opposite. They made some plays in the early game, have not been able to translate that into a mid-game lead. It's now 15 minutes and the gold has swung 2K in the favor of Bush Wookies.
All right, Silvermans, you have to show me something here. 2 team fights in a row have not gone your way, and for a team that is renowned for that team fight capability, that is not what we expect to see. Huli going to flash out there. However, there is company waiting in the wings here. Is that ult, that unstoppable onslaught, or so that charge is going to miss. I won't be finding anything there. I think if he lands that ability onto even 1, they probably commit there on the side of Bush Wookies, but he didn't, and so they'll just look to kind of reset the lanes. They are going to grab this top side neutral objective. They're going to be able to grab this Herald.
Yeah, Chrissy did have to give up first turret in the bottom lane, so good trade from the side of Silvermanes to be able to get the objective on the opposite side, even though they have to give up one on the top side. And I think that ult was slightly mispositioned from the side of Huli. It looked like they had the right idea, the right comms, just slight misplay from him.
Yeah, a little
Tempo
wide.
maybe almost about to make a misplay there.
Yeah, if he stepped forward, yeah, we're all looking at it like, hey, buddy, it's not quite where you want to be stepping up in the jungle there. Yes, you have recovered quite a bit in this lane, but you still don't want to be stepping into the middle of 4 people. I think actually something you highlighted a minute ago too, like, yeah, actually great trade on the bot side, and I think as well, like, the pressure that's been given over is like allowed Polaris and RX Genetics to get damage done onto these turrets. So yes, they're losing the team fights, but they also haven't been fighting really yet as a 5v5 has either team. So there's still plenty of opportunities for them to win some of these mid-game fights. It's just right now, I think Bush Wookies are doing a better job of it. But once they have less structures to play around, and once more of that neutral standing gold from the structures goes down towards Silvermane's pockets, I think we'll kind of start to see that even back up a little bit. But execution from the side of Bush Wookies has been good. So gold doesn't always matter. It's about how you play the team fights.
Speaking of execution, MCC has not missed on these bubbles. Forces the ultimate out of Dang Pingu. Good execution from him on this Nami. This is more of a masterclass than I expected. MCC really showing exactly how this champion should be played. Oh, Polaris, good wraparound here, though.
Ooh, what else can they get? All right, Silvermane, this is the team fight that you've been looking for. Cruci is always going to die here. It's a question of how many people are going to join with him. And 3 Tacos throws out the Cyclone to potentially buy a little space, but has to walk his monkey rear end on out of there. That does not feel good to throw out that ult and get nothing for it. And so Bush Wookies, rather, going to be on the receiving end of a not-so-fun team fight.
Yeah, a good wraparound from the side of Polaris, correctly identifying that he was able to catch out that bot lane. And a little bit of miscommunication, I think, from the side of Bush Wookies. 3 Tacos trying to go in there and create space, but Cruci just walking forward because he knows he's dead. I think at that point, you just kind of leave him to die.
Yeah. It's one of those weird shot calling moments where, like, you're potentially looking for a play, and I think maybe a little bit of a miscommunication where they're expecting something to happen. Or maybe we're, like, as a team, you're expecting a play to develop in a certain way, and then you're, like, trying to prep for that, and then suddenly it just doesn't happen. You're like, uh-oh. Well, now I'm mispositioned because this thing I thought was going to happen didn't happen. So, I think the important thing to note, too... I was just going to mention the Dragons is, like, even though Silvermane, they've lost, like, kind of the last... I'd say kind of the last couple important like skirmishes or team fights, like they are still up on Dragons, and so even though Bush Wookies has that Herald, Silvermane's at least has those 2 Dragons in their pockets, so that feels good, especially as we're getting ready for this Infernal Dragon to spawn. And what were you going to say?
I was just going to mention that speaking of good positioning, Polaris trying to flash in front of the ultimate coming out from Hooli, but he makes it all the way down to this bottom side, and we could get our first 5v5 fight. But I really like the positioning from Bush Wookies here on this Infernal Drake. They really need to stop this Dragon stacking pretty soon. I'll be the wrapping around.
The Silvermanes,
it's pretty separated from the rest of their team.
I think they're comfortable with giving this up. I don't think they necessarily need to fight for this Dragon. They can just stop the play, which Bush Wookies wanted to make in the mid lane with that Herald. They're not going to get anything for that, so that's fine. Silvermanes actually like that. No reason to take a sketchy team fight. They will get that mid lane turret. They'll walk away with some of that standing gold. Tidal Wave coming out, though. Cruci over the top, not landing really any damage, as 3 Tacos now onto the back line, tried to get close to Dimps, but what he's able to do it, now he may be potentially caught out, as it's a trade on the other side. Tempo will be the first one to die in this team fight. The Annie caught out. A decent engage from Bush Wookies, but there wasn't enough follow-up, weren't able to get on top of Dimps. And so they get the Dragon, but they lose a tower and lose their mid laner.
Yeah, very good play. Ooh, we might get some more here. Albie and Polaris might be a little bit stuck.
Oh,
what
gentlemen wide. No reason to do that. Polaris, can he get something? Is spinning like a Beyblade on top of multiple people, but not enough damage. He goes down. The Nami of all the people going to grab that one. Not sure that that was really what they were looking for. That looked good for Silvermanes until they ooga booga'd it in that topside jungle.
Yeah, it turns into an extended 2-for-1 fight in the favor of Bush Wookies, and this gold completely even now between these two teams. Neutral objectives also starting to stack up, but I think what's not shown on the scoreboard and what will be interesting to see if Bush Wookies can capitalize on is the amount of gold still standing on the map. Still multiple turrets with multiple plates remaining on all 3 lanes. We'll have to see whether Hooli can collect some of that on the bottom side here.
All right, Silvermanes, need to see them clean it up a little bit. I think the game's still in their control, even despite some of the weird fights that have happened prior to the last couple of minutes, where Bush Wookies were winning. But out of a team that's this good, especially one that purports to be at the top of the standings and wants to contest teams like Baggy Pampers and the Big Bird Club, you expect them to play a little bit more cleanly, especially when they have a lead like this and they have control of the map. And so that overextension in the jungle kind of just signals to me I think a little bit of lack of discipline in some of these instances, which we've seen a couple times. It's not to say that it's a glaring, character defect of the team. It's just you expect them to play a little bit smarter, especially after winning a big fight like that in the mid lane. You get a bunch of gold. So I want to see them clean it up and start to go through the natural progression playbook that teams do when there's position, which is you start getting ready to prep for Baron, you push out your lanes, you kind of stay together, you don't give anywhere team fights, and you certainly don't go towards the top side jungle into 3 people with your half health and try and steal away stuff that doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you're a team like Baggy Pampers or Big Bird Club, you're going to be kind of watching this game very eagerly, trying to see what mistakes you can potentially exploit from this final 3-0 team. Going to be Tacos getting run down by Genetics. Uses 2 charges of the ultimate, but not able to find the charm to follow up. And Cruci and Tempo on the top side trying to clean up more of the standing gold.
No, they're not going to be able to collect this turret right now, so that standing gold will continue to stay standing, at least for a moment. They will presumably pick this up. They've invested enough resources in the top side. Well, as I say that, I don't know how nervous they're feeling. Things are going down. So this turret is not going to drop GST yet. Alba's going to look to clear out some vision, so no trade for that objective just yet. Bot side turret, not really being down doesn't really help Bush Wookies right now because there's nothing to play for there. And Polaris, still a nuisance, still shoving on this bot side. And I think that for Bush Wookies is going to be the thing they're going to have to figure out here because they don't necessarily have a great one-on-one answer to Polaris right now. That Garen is not only very, very fast, so he's able to get out of some of these situations, but also in a 1v1 kind of defeats probably anybody. So you kind of need a 1-2 combo to knock him down. And so for Bush Wookies, they got to find an answer to this because I think we both agree, like, if Polaris is just allowed to continue to push this bot side and do what he wants, this is going to become an increasingly large issue for Bush Wookies.
Yeah, and another large issue may be brewing for Huli as multiple members of Silvermane's on this bottom side don't elect to go after that Scion just yet. But I think you're absolutely correct. It is a little disappointing to me that Scion was allowed to go essentially even in the laning phase. Makes it a lot more difficult for the side of Polaris. Not going to be able to split push completely. Will be able to be answered somewhat by that Scion, but still going to cause as much of a nuisance as you possibly can.
All right, let's play the rating game while we have a little bit of a moment here. Is Silvermane's going to start off this Baron. No pings going down from the side of Bush Wookies that they know this is happening. Although I think that they suspect it is now happening, and they are not comfortable with making the Dragon for Baron trade. And so we'll be charging in here. All right, Bush Wookies, show me something. Ooh, nice engage from Huli. Decimating smash onto 2. Cruci over the top. Throwing down the ultimate, though. Soraka keeping everybody healthy, at least for a moment. That Baron is still aggroed as Huli keeping that damage active on top of it. They want to try and steal this away. Nice little play from Silvermanes if they can... Or, sorry, nice little play from Bush Wookies, rather. If they make it stick, and they, in fact, do. Knock down that Baron, steal it away. They're going to go even get their second drag of the game. All right, Bush Wookies, I like the play. Really greedy from Silvermanes there.
Yeah, I think Silvermanes thought that they could get away with that Baron play. And you know what? It kind of looked good for a little bit. I think if they had decided to get off the Baron and turn towards the fight, that it might have been a little bit better. But taking so much damage from that Baron, and of course reducing the MR and armor from that Baron passive, means that they are in an incredibly vulnerable position, and a really good ult by Huli to start off that fight. Very difficult for the side of Silvermanes.
All right, Silvermanes, you put yourself in the spot. Let's see how you get out of it. I think right now Bush Wookies with all of the tools that they need to start to potentially make overtures to close out this game. I say potentially because we haven't seen Bush Wookies in this winning position in a hot minute. It's been a little while since they've been in command of a game state, and so now let's see if they remember how to actually close one out, as they're going to stay 4 strong here in this bot side. They're going to knock down, at bare minimum, this tier 2 mid turret. Now, this is being traded. Teleport coming out from RX Genetics. It might be a little bit of a fight here, as Polaris is also here. Now, Huli's going to be a little bit late to this fight. Wants to see if he can find the right angle. Knocks down RX Genetics. Silvermanes, they might have had the wraparound, but it was a wraparound on a wraparound from Bush Wookies. Who was flanking who? Tempo going to be knocking down the Soraka. Flash forward from Cruci, and 3 Tacos knocks down Dimps. Double kill for the Lucian. They're going to knock down the mid-lane turret. They might be able to get the end of the game here, Matrix.
I think this is pretty much over. Polaris with it all to do, and such a huge wave with Baron for the side of Bush Wookies. This Garen is going to have a lot of work, and I'm not sure if he's up to the task. But we'll see. We've seen Polaris win some very interesting positions.
It's the Beyblade man with a hope and a prayer. He's going to have to find a moment to try and go in. Is he just going to give it over? He will, in fact, not give them the kill. And Bush Wookies, for the first time in a hot minute, are going to collect their first win of the series and get to match point against Silvermanes.
Yeah, a little bit confusing from the side of Polaris there towards the end of the game, but my goodness. Bush Wookies finding the angles that they absolutely needed to find. The mid lane play at the very end there was absolutely brilliant. They knew exactly what was about to happen. They had vision, and they were able to stop it from becoming a problem for their side. Incredible job from Bush Wookies in this game number 1. And if you're Silvermanes, you better be a little bit worried, because BBC and Baggy Pampers, they're not going to let this one go either.
Yeah, absolutely not. Well, then I think also, too, importantly for for the side of Bush Wookies, they want to get that second win and keep their playoff prospects alive. And what a great way to do it. What a phenomenal way it would be to do it. Sorry, as I'm trying not to burp. And to get an upset win against Silvermanes. Silvermanes, they've talked about how they expect them to be towards that top of standing and contend for things, but dropping a game against series against the Bush Wookies would not be the way to do that. We'll see whether or not Bush Wookies are actually able to make the most of this opportunity and give Silvermanes their first series loss of the season, or whether or not Silvermanes will be able to answer back and force us to game 3. Don't go to work, because when we come back, game number 2 coming right up. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live with the draft for our game number 2. So we're getting into this one. We just left Silvermanes and Bush Wookies. We already laid out the stakes for both of these teams. I'm still Horizon. This is still Matrixsenpai. We are still your casters and the narrators for your wonderful journey through tonight's series. Silvermanes, they need to find a win here, and in order to do that, they need to not only find a draft that they can execute on, but then they need to actually execute on that draft.
Yeah, some really good moves early from the side of Silvermanes, getting the early advantage, picking up multiple neutral objectives, really holding control of the very early game, but then kind of giving it up in a silly fashion around the bottom side. Silvermane's going to pick up the Urgot, though, for Polaris. They're not messing around this time.
No, Garen Angle this time obviously going to be off the board. Thank God we have Fearless Draft. I think that has just improved the game so much. Fantastic. And we get, because we get to see champions like this. A lot of stuff that you would never see before is getting played so much now. The question I have about that Urgot, though, is the Mordekaiser is still available for Bush Wookies. Does Hooli potentially favor himself a Mordekaiser angle, or will he go something safe and true and trusted, perhaps like the Gnar or the Ornn?
I definitely like to see him more on a champion like Ornn. I definitely think that Hooli has some carry potential, but I really think if you are 1-0 up on Bush Wookies, and indeed Ornn will be hovered here, you really want something that is safe, right? Something that is reliable, something to stand in front of your team. You don't want to kind of flip it on its head when it comes to a champion like Urgot, and especially one that is definitely Polaris' signature champion. You want something that's safe, that can survive the lane pretty much no matter what, and force Polaris to do all the work in that lane.
Good call out there. I think I agree. I like him on the Ornn. The Mordekaiser is always a fun champion just because it's such a playmaking champion. It also opens up interesting possibilities, as we'll have to see what that pick is. As that is going to be the Karma. So it's going to be Karma as the support for the Silvermanes there, and we'll see what they pick alongside it with the ADC. But I agree. I think Ornn is just a great champion. Mordekaiser's fun, but when you want to win a series and you want to put yourself in contention to make playoffs, you can't really be taking too many risks, and I think Ornn opens up a lot of how Bush Wookies wants to play. They had a more early game-centric draft in the last game, but it seems like they're going long with this one. So interested to see what scaling picks they want to pick alongside that Ornn, as the Smolder was taken off the board, but there are other really good scaling champions available.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see some more hyper carry potential on this bottom side. Seraphine, of course, can be flexed mid lane. Not something we see very often in TLS, but still an option for the side of Bush Wookies. And I definitely think that Ezreal is not the play.
Yeah, all right. So, Bush Wookies, let's talk about this for a second. In the whole wide world of scaling champions, the Ezreal, I think, was maybe not the champion to go for there. I'm going to do a little bit of devil's advocacy and say that the Ezreal does help them bridge some of their early to mid game woes, and Ezreal's not the worst scaling ADC in the game, but he's also not the best.
I completely agree. Now, potentially we see Tempo on more of a hard scaling laner in that mid lane. The Anivia still up, Ryze and Cassio also still up. So some scaling options in the mid lane still. Asol, also a viable champion, and could be decent into the Mel. We'll have to see how this draft shakes out. I think, though, just to kind of address one of your earlier points, definitely the Mordekaiser is a very entertaining champion. And of course, we want all of our viewers to be entertained. But at the same time, if Bush Wookies upset Silvermanes, I think that's a little bit more entertaining.
I think that's way more entertaining. Yeah, I'm less concerned about the method in which they upset Silvermanes, more that just they do it. And, you know, I think that's an interesting element, too, because, you know, Silvermanes, they've taken a couple more of these potential scaling picks away from Bush Wookies. You know, what does that do to Silvermanes, knowing that they've lost his first game? There were some moments where they should have been winning it, but then they throw it Baron, which is kind of quintessentially kind of the only way that teams that are decently far ahead, that's the only kind of light switch flip thing that you can do to lose a game. And so I'm curious what that does to Silvermane's middle. You know, you've had a bunch of really good series prior to this, you're undefeated, and then Bush Wookies just walks along and knocks you down a peg for a second. You know, does that affect your game 2 mental?
I think it does affect your game 2 mental a little bit, and Silvermane's pulling out the Urgot also, I think, signifies a little bit of where their mental is at. The LeBlanc coming out as well, so it maybe Mel AP carry. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think there's really that's the only place that she could go, because LeBlanc's gonna go towards that mid lane. A little bit of an early signal to go that LeBlanc, I think, because there are some mid lane champions that could punish that, so I'm a little concerned about that being the blind pick, especially now the Bush Wookies, they clearly saved a mid lane pick for last. So what do they want to pick here? Trying to think of some champions that would be really good in LeBlanc. Kassadin is one of those few champions that comes up where I'm like, this might be a great Kassadin draft. But no, it will instead be the Nefiri, who has absolutely no problem trading into the LeBlanc. I like that potentially. Thoughts, Matrix, on how Bush Wookies have rounded this draft out?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't see some more scaling, but of course, Ornn finds scaling the rest of the team up on his own with those Ornn items. The Seraphine, also nice to have somebody, really 2 people, to stand behind and press R over. I do think that Ezreal is a reasonably safe pick here into the Mel and the LeBlanc. Viego, of course, also a very aggressive champion. So some of the safety, I think, makes sense. The Nefiri is a bit of a question mark in my mind. I think it does okay in the lane, but really, what does it do late game? You're not going to go on to basically anyone aside maybe from Mel in this late game? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as much as I like this Nefiri pick just because it's fun to see, because, you know, we're starting to see mid lane players kind of open up a little bit more in the champion pools. I am a little bit disappointed that Bush Wookies, like, they clearly, at least in the first couple picks, had this idea of where they wanted to go with it, but then didn't enable their capability of scaling as much as I think maybe they should have. And so it's like, all right, well, now you're going to have to make this work in a way that might be a little bit more unconventional than what you wanted originally. So I think for Silvermanes, like, they have the ability to win this game. Obviously, like, they're very skilled players, they're very good as a team, but it's also one of those things that, like, you know, you did just lose against Bush Wookies in a similar thing where they maybe had a draft where some elements weren't supposed to work, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have a lot of questions and not a lot of answers as we're on to the Rift game number 2.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of question marks in my mind as well from both of these teams. I really don't know. There is a decent amount of damage spread from the side of Silvermanes here, right? Albi and Polaris, both on those AD champions. Mid and ADC will be playing AP heavy champions. But not a lot of AP coming out for the side of Bush Wookies, and this could potentially make things a little bit difficult for them. MCC and Cruci, though, taking a lot of poke on this bottom side from Demps.
Yeah, that's the Mel APC champion. This is why every traditional ADC player hates mages in the bot lane, because then you just get to do stuff like that for free. And also, MCC is going to have to wait a little bit before he's able to get that sustain element on the Seraphine. You need level 3 to kind of consistently trade or get those rotations out in order to get the healing. And then that kind of has a decently long cooldown, so it's not like the easiest sustain of the world. Versus Dank, Pingo, and Demps, like that Karma and that Mel is just like perma poke. And so I think for Silvermanes, they're going to have their work cut out for them a little bit, as I did not switch the sides on this game. So I am going to have to see if I can flip this, as I didn't. I'm going to have to see if I can reset. Can I reset this?
You can just hit the toggle button.
Where is the toggle button?
In current game.
I see it.
Yeah. Yep, it swaps it around.
There we go. There we go. Fantastic. All right, we're back into it. As despite the experience I claim to have, is Crucy going to go ahead and get the first blood. The Seraphine collected that one. I would like to have seen that gone over to the Ezreal, but that didn't happen. Apologize for the production errors. Meanwhile, while I was trying to figure things out because I'm an idiot, Bush Wookies, they are going to get the first blood of the game. A little bit of a departure from the last one. And if you're Bush Wookies, that is exactly what you want on a scaling composition, getting that early gold.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This looks a really good early play from Bush Wookies. Of course, in the mid lane, Tempo is really running this genetics LeBlanc. And ask me how I know how to switch the teams around.
Matrix, how do you know how to switch the teams around?
Man, you know, it might have something to do with the fact that I made that exact same mistake myself at least twice.
I'm glad that there's a button that switches it around, because if you had to do something manually to switch that, you know, or like completely restart it, I was like, oh man, this is rough. This is not a great look. So yeah, at least there's a handy dandy little button. Because I remember when this application first came out, and buddy, was it rough. There was not the same functionality that exists now. So great little software. Speaking of functionality, though, Bush Wookies are functionally right now having a nice little lead. See what I did there? Nice little transition, because I'm an expert. Just kidding. And as we highlighted a minute ago, like Bush Wookies having that early advantage, especially getting the early gold onto the Ezreal when your goal is to scale towards the late game, I think just sets you up very nicely, puts you in a nice position. But as it was with the last game, I'm really looking at Albi and Three Tacos to get involved with one and get involved in this game and see where they want to make this first moves. I think given the way that this game is likely going to go for Bush Wookies, I really want to see Three Tacos ganking that bot side, because you do have two very immobile laners. Demps and Dank Tengu do not have a lot of escape tools. Ooh. There's a nice little trade this bot side. Demps, they're getting the worst innings, and Dank Tengu might be the next to drop. Drusy, sorry, I said Drusy? Crucy gets the kill on that bot side. I'm a little bit tongue-tied. It's what happens when you get out of practice even for a couple days. Crucy got his first kill there, so this bot line for the side of Bush Wookies, they are rocking and a-rolling.
Yeah, no, Crucy looked really comfortable on this Ezreal, and my bad for questioning that one, because this guy is not missing. Ooh, Demps with the flash.
Crucy, oh, he overstayed. Oh, does get it, though, with a quick shot barrage. Does manage to get it on that Q. Well done, trading 1-for-1 there, because he was absolutely going to die.
Yeah, no, I think he correctly identified that he was going to die and went for the play, does manage to get it, and this bot lane is looking really rough for the side of Silvermanes. We'll see if this translates a little bit later into the game, but man, if you pick Demps, a laner, Polaris.
In the 1v1 against Polaris, Bush Wookies are starting to feel themselves. Matrix, this may have been the turnaround for their season. They look like they're feeling really good.
Yeah, and you questioned about the mental after that first game, and I think more than the bad mental for the side of Silvermanes, I think the good mental coming out from Bush Wookies, they're really showing some strength right now, and I'm here for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what's even more surprising, too, is the fact that this bot lane is going so well, given that Silvermanes was able to get the counter pick there, at least a little bit, in terms of being able to get the Mel after they saw the Ezreal. That's typically a champion that you expect to be very oppressive, but Crucian Company doing really good. And I like what I'm seeing out of Bush Wookies. I think that they're taking the game into their own hands. Also, shout out Demps one time for stepping back into range for that quick shot. I really appreciate that. Or sorry, it's not quick shot barrage. I forgot what it's true shot barrage is the crucial. I don't know why I'm saying quick shot barrage on the Q. I forgot what the Q's name is, but
you know, I actually don't remember what it is either. But the other thing too, speaking of counter picks, right? Demps, of course, wanting to counter pick that Seraphine as well. The Mel reflect really good into the course coming out from the Seraphine, but not going to be able to utilize that effectively if he does not hit level 6 before MCC.
The other thing I want to talk about, because we've been mentioning the scaling element a little bit too, is the importance for Hooli to try and stay as even as possible in this lane. Yes, Polaris does have a significant CS lead, but obviously Hooli going to be feeling pretty good for the fact that he got that solo kill on the top side. And I think for Hooli, it's like making sure that he can reach those level break points as soon as possible. That level 13 is that big mark for the Ornn so that he can start getting those ornaments out. And I think specifically, like the champion you're going to be focusing is either going to be 3 tacos on the Jarvan just because he's going to be so mobile around the map and he'll get the most use out of that early ornament, or you're trying to get it on Cruci if you can get an early lane swap and just put additional pressure on a Polaris.
And I think the thing that I've talked about multiple times on stream when we see these bruiser versus tank matchups is it's really all of the work is put on the bruiser. The tank just kind of sits back and tries to scale as much as possible. And Polaris, both of these games, has elected to pick. Ooh,
3 tacos, nice.
Up here on the top side.
Yeah, nice little gank timing. Polaris forced to flash out. They committed 1 ultimate. So the Ornn Horn is thrown out there just to see if they could confirm the knockup. They did, but he was... Polaris did a good job of retreating back to his turret, so denies that kill. But it is the flash gun for the Urgot, and so that does open up the possibility for Bush Wookies to make another gank up topside. So look to see them do that in the next couple minutes.
Yeah. It's going to get a little bit more difficult here in this mid lane, or in this bot lane now. Demps is level 6 and will have a decent amount of damage, but uses the ult incorrectly.
Yeah, that was not the time to throw that out. That execution threshold was nowhere near on MZZ. And with the sustain that that bot side has, it gets really, really difficult to get those chunks out in order to get the execute.
Yeah, absolutely. Seraphine going to have a decent amount of healing and shielding at this point in the game. And a decent use of the Reflect does get the snare off, but doesn't mean that they are able to get the kill. And people think that Mel is a really easy champion to play, and in some respects she kind of is. But she is very abusable, and that's something that people don't really take into account.
I think she has actually a very high skill threshold in order to get right. Like, yeah, some of the combos are easy to land, but it's when and how you use them. And then also the fact that, like, because you have significant cooldowns, like, you have to pick your moments. And so I think in that element, she is a little bit more difficult to pilot. Something I want to... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
It's exactly what I'm talking about, right? When I say that she's very easily abusable, those high cooldowns, you really need to... If you're throwing those abilities out just willy-nilly, it's going to be very easy for your lane opponent to punish that. And I think the bot lane of Bush Wookies is doing a good job.
What I was going to say, something I want to kind of switch over to, because we haven't really talked about this much at all, is this matchup between RX Genetics and Tempo, you know, that LeBlanc and then Nefarian. I'm curious how you feel about the value of both those champs in the late game, because I feel like LeBlanc is a very much a known quantity in competitive environments. Like, you know, you get to that late game stage, she's jumping up her wall, she's poking all your squishies, she's deleting your Ezreal off the face of the planet. But Nefiri is not a champion we get to see a lot in competitive environment in these late game scenarios. And we'll have to hold that thought as 3 Tacos going to be jumping over. That's going to be the Nefiri ultimate on top of Albi, who gets got on the Viego. And so I will now open the floor to you, Matrix. Which of these champions do you think is going to be more valuable in the late game?
I absolutely agree with you on the point about Genetics. He is playing a champion that is well known for just absolutely deleting those squishy carries, and quite a few of them on the side. Ooh, Polaris, though, going aggressive on the Hooli. But yeah, LeBlanc, very well known, very well hated for that ability. But of course, Tempo is doing a pretty good job here, is up 1-0 now, and has a not insignificant CS lead.
Pretty nice lead.
And I think that he's going to be able to do some of the same things that LeBlanc would normally want to be able to do. The difference, though, is going to be that realistically, he needs to be right up in the face of the enemy carries in order to make this happen. And he's going to need to stay there, unlike the LeBlanc, who is able to get out whenever she chooses.
Dems, nice reflect there with the encore. Viego wants to get involved with this one. The Smite going to go down just to slow him up a little bit. They will at least get the support as a trade. Nice little reflect from Dems. I love that play to make sure that that encore was used as a lockup ability. I think even possibly MZC, if he just waited to throw that out and more threw it towards the Viego, towards Albi, they probably could have just walked out of there. So I think maybe a little bit of a misplay. I think both of them could have lived there.
Yeah, I definitely think both could have walked away. You really need to bait out the Mel Reflect, and it is such a long cooldown that you should be able to bait this out relatively easily. Speaking of baiting out, though, Tacos...
Has Flag Injection should be able to get back over that wall. It's kind of one of those things that, like, if you're RX, like, all right, how bad do I really want to chase this? This guy has this full kit. He can just get over the wall. But I think kind of the point that we were talking about earlier, because I agree that 3 Tacos has to play, Tempo has to play way more aggressively on the Nefiri, in terms of staying in the face of multiple members of Silvermanes. But I think the trade-off there, though, is RX Genetics, his bursty combo, while it does keep him safe because he can go in and out with a distort, Tempo has, I think, a longer sustained combo and how much longer he can take fights. Speaking of it, taking a fight now, as Dank Pengu and RX Genetics might have been looking for something towards that mid lane, but nothing will happen there, so Bush Wookies will just walk on out.
I think the other difference in this particular game, though, is that the carry, at least the bot lane carry, for both of these teams, right? Tempo is going to be going into a very immobile carry as the Forge God comes out here.
Well done. Let's see if Polaris can turn this back, and in fact puts him in the threshold. I thought that was a nice little combo from Huli, but Polaris turns that one back around. Nice little 1v1 there.
Yeah, Polaris able to get off the ultimate, and that really makes things difficult. Not able to flash, he does not have it. But back to the point I was trying to make a little bit earlier, Demps, a very immobile mage, and Tempo will be able to stick on him very easily, where RX Genetics really has to do all the work to stick onto Cruci with that Ezreal E.
Ooh. All right, let's play the game of whether or not Cruci lives here. As again, it Demps, I think this time in the ultimate a little bit. Flag drag now committed for 3 Tacos. Dank Pengu and Demps nowhere to go. Locked underneath the turret. Taco's going to collect the double kill and that bot side. Oh, you hate to see it. As Demps and Dank Pengu, they were trying to get aggressive there, but just weren't respectful of the timing, had no vision, and so they get punished.
Yeah, and the other problem that I'm seeing right now is Demps does not appear to know when his ultimate threshold will kick in. Has not been able to execute a single time on this Mel, has used it early every single time, and seems a little bit out of desperation and a little bit out of just a lack of knowledge of the champion.
Yeah. When I think even if you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, like, okay, well, maybe he's just going for a bursty combo to try and force them out. Like, that is really difficult to do in terms of just forcing Ezra out of lane, given that MZC, has, level 6, has access to kind of the full rotation. Tempo now going to be firing RX Genetics. Didn't get ignited because RX Genetics didn't elect to take the ignite on the LeBlanc like we sometimes see them do. So doesn't have to worry about that, but nice little trade there. But the point that I was making is, even if Demps, if you're trying to just give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going for that burst combo, it's I'm not sure that that's the angle you should be looking for, because MCC is always going to keep Cruci healthy. And so, if you're going to go for it, it needs to be a kill combo and not just this sort of chunk play.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be the full combo. Taco's now looking to get full comboed by Polaris.
I don't think that they want to fight him right now because the rotations for Silvermanes are starting to come through. Polaris is very, very strong right now. MCZ going to throw down the Encore. Not sure what he was doing hanging out in that side of the jungle. Was Crucial will trade 1-for-1 on the bot side. Demp's going to drop the Bush Wookies ADC. Starting to have a really, really good game. 3-1-3 on the Ezreal. Triforce completed. So some weird plays across the map. Demps hovering around way too long on the bot side, but then also MZC caught in a weird rotation near Raptors for some reason.
Yeah, not quite sure what was happening there. I guess trying to protect Taco's camps as he was very close to them. I think Pinker, though, looking for something on the top side, but MCC is here to respond.
All right, MCC, let's see
something
if he
else to point out here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, MCC in a little bit of an awkward spot right now. Once again caught probably where he shouldn't be. Bush Wookies, if you're trying to win out a series, this is not how you do that. Just because you're feeling good does not mean you can do whatever you want. You need to make smart plays, and these are not smart plays.
Yeah, this gold lead coming back to about 400 between these two teams, and relatively even spread of objectives as well. Bush Wookies have managed to get all of the Drakes, but the Grubs going over to the side of Silvermanes.
Yep. Will they get the Herald though? Because the team fighting spot for Bush Wookies is in a little bit of a weird spot in that the majority of their power is kind of in this Ezreal, and so if they do want to contest for this, I think that they need to be moving all the way up there right now, and the fact that Ping's going in that top side means that I think the Silvermane's going to be the first one to get there, but Bush Wookies, they're going to be looking for a play of their own. 3 Tacos is going to be looking for the flag and the drag. They should be able to follow up on this one. Dank Pingu manages to get to safety. The last auto attack, not enough, but Silvermane should be able to go get that Herald. Actually, I guess... All right, Albie, what are you doing? Like, you're freaking me out here. You're back and you're walking towards the Herald. Then you weren't, now you are. They are going to spot this out, Will Bush Wookies, but I don't think there's anything they can do about it because,
Yeah, I think they elected to give it up based on that bot lane play. You don't really send Jarvan to the opposite side of the map when an objective is up if you're not looking to, but
yeah, I think
they're strong enough.
Yeah, I think they're looking to do something now. They didn't really commit a whole lot in that bot side other than just some aggression, and then obviously, I mean, really no big ults that were used there. They can contest this if they want to. Huli is already a little bit chunked. I want to see them focus Polaris. You don't want to fight this Urgot in a really, really long fight, and I think, okay, partial what we were saying, Silvermane's being able to grab that Herald. Bush Wookies with a great rotation, show more members, and off pressure, they're going to get it because there's just no way for Demps to get up here.
Yeah, Demps electing to stay on that bottom side, and honestly, I'm a little surprised that Albie didn't just immediately take the Herald as soon as Taco showed on that bottom side for that play. I really think that's a mistake from them, but they are going to try to go for this bot objective.
All right, Bush Wookies, this is a weird, Silvermane, this is a really awkward spot for you right now. Because you're going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Bush Wookies can look to just place this Herald down and make a play for the mid lane turret. Neither top lane is getting involved just yet. Polaris can't really do anything about Huli getting involved in this fight. Huli does have the teleport. Polaris would have to commit very heavily under turret to get it. So it's going to be about whether or not Huli teleports quickly. Do they think they can win the 4v4, or do they need the Ornn involved in this fight? My sense tells me that they do, because the core 4, at least right now, for Silvermane, I think it feels a little bit stronger. The Dragon getting to 3k, slowly going down. Neither jungler making a big move just yet. Huli just wants to keep Polaris occupied on this top side, looking to potentially for a teleport angle, but no, Silvermane's just going to call this one off. They are now on drag points, so they'll have to fight for every drag for the rest of the game.
Yeah, this is really awkward behavior from the side of Silvermane. It's not at all the way that I expect them to be playing, and I'm wondering if it's just like an off day or there's some issue with the comms, because this does not look like one of our top 3 teams.
Yeah.
And all credit to Bush Wookies. They're absolutely playing well, but there are mistakes being made by the side of Silvermanes that just should not be made.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just highlighted something that's really important, I think, too, is it takes 2 to tango. Yes, Bush Wookies are playing well. We don't want to take away from that. They're playing really good. They're playing even better than they played in the first game, especially through this early to mid game. But Silvermane's, like, I think as you highlighted, they are making mistakes that they traditionally don't make, and I think it's not just the kind of the game 1 mental, although I'm sure that has at least something to do with it to some degree. I think the other thing that is kind of happening too is when you have an awkward start to a series where you were supposed to start a specific time, and then, you know, obviously the error that we had earlier was that the Riot client wasn't functioning correctly, so we couldn't actually get the lobby going. Like, even a delay of, 20 to 30 minutes, and what that does to your mental, because you were prepared for a game, if you're not able to reset off that, it can affect the way you play a series. And so, I think Silvermane's uncharacteristically making some of those mistakes that we don't see from them. And for Bush Wookies, this is good news because they can capitalize on that and get a second series win.
Yeah, who knows? Grandpa Demps missing his bedtime may just need to, may just be a little bit sleepy in that ADC role, trying to play something a little more relaxed and not having as much of a good time with it. But very good job on Bush Wookies, capitalizing on these mistakes, making plays across the map, putting themselves on Soul Point and on a 1k gold lead at 20 minutes. Let's see if they can close out this game, though.
Yep. So the Herald play, obviously not something that Silvermane needs to worry about now, but the gold that was given over from that play is something they'll have to be cognizant of, is Bush Wookies. Not a whole lot of a gold lead to mention, but it is just where it's gone in terms of the pockets and the itemization it means. And Huli, now that he's reached level 13, going to start to be churning out those ornament items. And I think that's Silvermane's the other thing that you need to start thinking about is the additional stats advantage that the Bush Wookies are going to be getting from this. And Polaris, while he's enjoying this sort of bullying top lane status for right now, that is eventually going to change. Once Ornn becomes a little bit more difficult to deal with. And speaking of difficult to deal with, Demps going to be forced to flash out. Nowhere really to go, though. 3 Tacos wants to lock down this Mel. Threw out the shield just to try and block a little bit of damage, but it doesn't mean anything. 3 Tacos collects the mid laner. And Bush Wookies grouping very heavily here on this bot side. Right now, I mean, Matrix, to me, it feels like as long as Polaris is not involved in these fights for Silvermanes, I feel like Bush Wookies just feel empowered to kind of do what they want right now.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for the side of Silvermane to do anything without Polaris. And he, like you said, is doing a good job in this 1v1, is keeping it relatively ahead. He is about 50 CS up over his laner, 2 kills to 1. And I wonder how these team fights are going to go once he starts getting involved. But of course, Huli able to just kind of stand in front and make sure that things are a lot more difficult for Polaris. It's really going to be on Polaris to create enough space for Genetics and Albi to get onto that back line.
Yeah, I like the Black Cleaver first item, funnily enough. I think it's great given the armor that you're trying to shred both on the Jarvan and the Ornn. I think he's going to collect this first turret, so that'll help him get his second itemization. I'm going to do a little bit of predicting the future here. I don't often do this on the stream because, you know, it has the propensity to go wrong, but I'm going to do a little bit of future predicting. Silvermanes, my prediction is if they do not have Polaris involved in these 5v5s, they're not going to be able to win these team fights because the core 4 right now for the side of Silvermanes is not strong enough to win the fight. Dimps is not anywhere near strong enough to put the damage out that they would need to win the fight. And RX Genetics, while he can focus primarily one person, it doesn't solve for the other 4 people in the fight for the side of Bush Wookies. And so I think unless they get Polaris on this Urgot involved, I think they're going to continue to hemorrhage across the map. The flip side of that, though, is I think Bush Wookies do need to find a more effective way of answering Polaris. I would like to see them gank him really good one time, just to give him a little bit of hesitancy in terms of trying to be in the side lane alone. And then that way the Bush Wookies can get a little bit more pressure on the map, especially as we're getting close to this 30-second mark of the Dragon. Polaris are going to be working his way towards this bot side.
Yeah, I think this is a really smart play from Polaris, being on this bottom side ahead of the Drake. Did have TP, but wants to be here for this fight because he knows how important this Mountain Soul is going to be. If Bush Wookies are able to pick this up, it's going to make life so much harder for Silvermanes.
Yeah.
They cannot afford to give this one up.
No, they can't. I mean, because Polaris is already going to have his work cut out for him in terms of being that sole armor pin. I mean, he's the sole AD threat, really, other than Albi, to cut through these tanks. And so they need him to be able to have that effective damage. And giving over Mountain Soul is like a surefire way to make sure that you can't get the damage you need. Dimps stepped a little bit too far forward. He threw out the Reflect to block it, but you can only block one ability. Albi going to be in the backside. Wait a minute. What else can they do? RX Genetics manages to slay MCZ. Lived long enough. Now Polaris is here. Bush Wookies. Uh-oh. This wasn't the fight that they wanted, and now it's going to be the follow-up. Albi, though, going to be making sure that he locks down the Ornn. Bush Wookies, they get caught out, and a fight that maybe looked like it was going to go their way initially gets turned. Silvermane stopped the dragon stacking.
Yeah, it was almost incredibly risky. Polaris was not there for the beginning of that fight. Demps almost goes down. Does end up going down in the end, but took a little bit longer than the side of Bush Wookies would want, and then they're just not able to really take the rest of that fight. And even though Jungle and ADC both have about a 1.4k gold lead between them, or between their laners, they're still able to take this mid lane turret. It didn't really seem to matter. Cruci wasn't able to find the right angles and wasn't able to do enough damage to win out that team fight.
Well, and that was exactly what I kind of predicted earlier, and I think the expectation that we set in terms of making sure that Polaris is there, because with that Urgot, they have a tremendous amount of team fight threat, but without him, they start to struggle a little bit. And so good on him to be proactive in the positioning. Dimps now going to be reflecting that Arcane Barrage, but it's not going to matter a whole lot. He will get collected. What else do they want to get? Polaris has now joined, and now Bush Wookies, they want to get out. No mid lane turret to huddle underneath, so they will just collect their kill and get out. And Polaris, you can see how much respect Bush Wookies are giving that top laner.
Yeah, for sure. And they're really picking on the ADC here a little bit, and I do feel a little bad for Demps. But at the same time, you really need to hold him down. If this Mel gets a couple of kills, it could make things a lot more sticky for the later game.
I have no sympathy for Demps. You were playing the Mel on the bot side. You knew exactly what was going to happen to you or what could happen to you as soon as you locked it in. It was in the fine print. If you lock this champion in the bot lane, everyone will gank you. You will have no friends. Nobody likes you. Go home.
For sure.
I think on the backside, ooh, Tempo wants to try and walk out of here. Dank Pengu is waiting in the wings just to help out with this one. Tempo, where you gonna go? Is gonna get rooted up by the Karma, and will get donated over. Bush Wookies, what do they do in here? The Arcane Barrage only finds out the clones from RX Genetics. So yeah, unfortunately, they're just going to have to watch that one go down. Not a whole lot they can do about it. Is Huli now trying to get the hell away from this Urgot.
Yeah, this Urgot is going to be very scary at this point. Does have the Sterex gauge, and it's going to be quite tanky. Surprisingly tanky for the rest of this game.
Yeah.
Also, 2 levels up on Huli here, and Demps is walking over. Actually get an assist.
Yeah, this is just so unfortunate for Huli. He's just trapped in hell, and that bot side, there's really nothing he could do, especially with Demps walking around to make sure that that retreat was cut off. And now Polaris has reached the point where he is really not answerable by any less than 2 or 3 members of the side of Bush Wookies. And now, like, because they haven't answered him sufficiently enough, this Urgot can kind of go where he wants and do whatever he wants. And so now I'm wondering, Bush Wookies, like, what is your plan to deal with this Urgot?
Yeah, going to have to send multiple members in order to make this work. But speaking of sending multiple members, Albi and Crew and Dank Pingu on this Ezreal. Arch Genetics coming as well. Ezreal's a slippery champion, but not slippery enough.
Yeah. Silvermane's starting to show me some really good signs of life in terms of getting control over this game. They're starting to get their gold lead well and truly rolling, about 4,500 gold. For them, and a good recovery. I think we were concerned about their mental state, at least at the beginning of this game, but now they've very clearly kind of cleaned up their shot calling. They're starting to make the right plays across the map, and obviously Polaris is giving them a lot of agency to play in this game. So now for me, it's like, okay, I need to see like another convincing team fight play where they win before I believe that like this game is well and truly won, even though they do have the gold lead. There are still elements that Bush Wookies have that can help them turn these team fights, but I think if Silvermane just wins one more really good team fight, I think the game's over.
Yeah, definitely balancing on a knife's edge at this point in the game. And to be honest, at this point, I'd really like to see a Drake for Baron trade for one of these teams. Preferably a Baron for the side of Bush Wookies, because they need something to collect the rest of these turrets and really crack the base.
Well, I think actually just brought up an interesting point, too, is like, I think for Bush Wookies, they do need to keep vision on that Baron. Oh, tempo. Yeah, this is not what you want. He's going to try and get out of here. He goes invulnerable just for a brief moment, but yeah. Oh, Silvermanes, they're starting to collect kills all across the map as the Seraphim was also picked on the back end of this one. And I was going to say that for Bush Wookies, they needed to keep eyes on the Baron just to make sure that Silvermanes didn't steal that one away, because they have Polaris with the shotgun knees on the Urgot who just keeps them on permanently. But maybe they should be investing some more vision in their own side of the jungle rather than being worried about that, because they are getting picked off just about everywhere.
Yeah, really getting picked off in their own jungle is not what you want to see. They were doing it to Silvermanes earlier, but now it's happening to them. And Demps finally getting a kill with that ultimate. Taco's going to go down as well here. Oh, actually,
Polaris is going to walk out for now. That Ornhorn did not go where he wanted that to go. Now has to flash out. Polaris is as close to dead as he's probably going to get, at least for the foreseeable future. He hasn't knocked him down yet. Grabs Duorn, throws him back. Albi knocks him down, and set him up all again. Goes into the fountain. He's going to be dead for the next 40 seconds. Dragon is on the board, and potentially so is the Herald. Not the Herald, but rather the Nasher. The Silvermanes, this is basically their game to close out now.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of an issue in this particular. You mentioned it earlier that Bush Wookies, they really needed to close out. They needed to know how to close out the games, and they did not know how to close out this one. It was a little bit back and forth from both of these teams for a while, but despite how commanding everything was going for the side of Bush Wookies, they really did not have that much of a gold lead, and part of that was due to the fact that Polaris was really outstripping Huli in that top side. Of course, the Ornn items not showing in the gold graph, so a little bit of that will be missed, but Ornn is level 16 and has only given out one item at this point, so I'm wondering what he's waiting on, or what his teammates are waiting on.
It is actually showing in the thing. So the only item that he's upgraded is that Black Cleaver for the side of 3 Tacos. They are trying to knock down Polaris here. Do they have the damage to do it? He is just doing such a good job and trading 1 for 2, but they call even more reinforcements just to knock down the Urgot. He eventually drops, but it is going to be for that Baron on the top side. Pink's going down. This is not the healthiest Baron for Silvermanes now without him. They want to try and stop 3 Tacos from getting in. They're going to stun him up at least momentarily, but he's going to get close. Teleport not coming through. Wait a minute. Bush Wookies, can they do it? Oh, the steal not there, but 3 Tacos. He will at least hold a couple people in. Booley teleported in. Maybe the next kill donated. You saw the angle for the side of Bush Wookies, but they only donate 2 kills. So it's a 1 for 2 plus Baron trade in the end for the side of Silvermanes. Oh, I was thinking there for a moment 3 Tacos was going to steal that one away.
Yeah, that one looked incredibly close. I was on the edge of my seat just waiting for the the announcer to say red team has stolen the Baron, but unfortunately not going to happen. And the rest of Bush Wookies not able to make it there in time as Hooli will be donated over.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a little bit frustrating for their side, but still recoverable. They did manage to get the shutdown onto Polaris.
Yeah, and I think
be a little bit.
I think that would have been potentially disastrous for Silvermanes if you drop Polaris on that bottom side and then you lose Baron off of just a steal, because that's a very, relatively speaking, a low investment for Bush Wookies at that point. But speaking of investment, is Krushi and MZZ investing a little bit to try and knock down some of these mid lane champions. As RX Genetics going to go on a rampage, collects tempo in that top side. And this Fury pick has been quiet. We were wondering about who was going to be the more dangerous late game threat. And RX Genetics, I think, has sufficiently answered that question.
Yeah, 4-0-6 on this LeBlanc versus the 1-3-1 on the side of the Neferi. Definitely taking more advantage of those squishy members. And right now, not too many people looking super squishy. Demps, of course, able to mitigate a lot of the damage that this Neferi wants to do. Genetics, of course, able to prevent or just dash away from that Neferi. Albi, pretty tanky in his own right on 4 items, does have the Immortal Shield Bow to prevent the burst coming out from the Neferi. And of course, there is no way Neferi is ever going onto Polaris without just absolutely regretting it.
No,
so
that is a one-way trip, sir. That is a do not pass go, do not collect $200. Speaking of not collecting $200, Three Tacos would like to collect a little bit of money. Dem's doing a really good job reflecting that Arcane Barrage. Now wants to walk out. No help coming just yet. That's going to be the Baron taken off of at least one member. Demps drops in that mid lane. All right, Bush Wookies, they're not conceding this just yet. They're staying scrappy. And the point I was actually going to make earlier, because I was looking at that Baron timer, was Silvermanes actually didn't have the most gold-efficient Baron. Just because they're positioning, they didn't have their wave shove, so they're only just now starting to respond to that. So I'll be honest, yes, the Baron did go over. They got a little bit of gold off of it, but they didn't get too many structures off it. Specifically, no exposed inhibitors.
yeah, not able to crack the base, and that is going to be a little bit frustrating for the side of Silvermanes. But another Drake coming up in 1 minute, and this one going to be crucial. Will Silvermanes be able to get their own soul point? Where's Three Tacos going to be able to claim the soul for the side of Bush Wookies? Polaris trying to make things difficult, though, on the top side.
I think Silvermanes, I think Bush Wookies are fine with this. I think they know that because Baron has fallen off, even though the split push from Polaris is dangerous, they know that Silvermanes do need him in these fights. I think right now I'm not confident that Bush Wookies is going to win this fight. However, if they do get a pick here because they are perfectly positioned as brush. Oh, damn. His Spidey says Ortega does still get hit, though, by the Encore. That's the APC down. That is exactly what Bush Wookies needed. They would have liked it to have been on the Urgon, but you'll take the free pick if you can get it. 15 seconds on this Dragon. Now, we talked about how much Silvermanes did not want this Mountain Soul going over to the side of Bush Wookies because the takiness that would give them. Now Polaris has got his work cut out for him. He's the strongest member here. Is he just going to commit to marching down bot lane? Silvermanes, they need to try and contest this. Urgot's wrapping around. Oh, Matrix, RX
Genetics. They cannot get lit.
All right, they're gonna tag out Polaris. They see RX Genetics now. They know where he's at. They're just going to try and walk their way over the Dragon. Remember, if they can burst this down really quickly and get out, this would be a huge deal. Hooli going to throw out the Ornhorn to see if they can spot up your RX Genetics. They at least know where the positioning is. They got to make a choice. When are you going to commit to this Baron? Polaris walking forward, has to flash out, not going to be able to get back in very easily as Three Tacos trying to lock down a couple members, but the team fight for the side of Silvermanes is really strong. Polaris gets the fear onto multiple people. Karusi getting knocked down the shotgun. He's putting in the damage. They will for sure deny this Dragon Soul. The fight is so spread, and Bush Wookies, it looked like they had it together for a moment, but the team fighting for Silvermanes just too good. Hooli, Tempo running for their lives. Electrocution comes down to send him straight to the fountain. Tempo running for his life. MCC will recall, but it just doesn't matter. Silvermanes are going to look to end out the game.
Yeah, your prediction was absolutely correct. They needed Polaris, and it didn't even matter the Demps went down because Polaris has it all to do. And Albi doing a really good job in that team fight as well, able to create enough space and cause enough panic in this Bush Wookies team, and able to secure that Drake as well. They are going to be on soul point, but it isn't going to matter. They're just going to try to rush this one down. MCC taking a lot of damage here.
Yeah. Great job by Polaris to induce, I think, quite a bit of panic in terms of that team fighting. And you started seeing big ultimates get missed there in that team fighting. Specifically, that Ornhorn was just committed just to spot out RX Genetics and Polaris to make sure that their positioning was known. This is going to be a busted open base. I like the discipline from Silvermanes, given the respawn timers from the side of Bush Wookies decided not to commit and potentially give anything over, so they'll just look to reset. Super minions pouring into that mid lane makes their job a little bit easier.
Yeah, and this is going to be, what, a 16k gold, a 13k gold lead, excuse me, almost 14 for the side of Silvermanes at this point, and most of that is going to be on both Albi and Polaris, but RX Genetics, a gold lead in his own right as well. Definitely very far ahead of his lane opponent.
All right.
They're going to be spawning on this top side as well.
Yeah,
and Bush Wookies are here first, but...
Yeah, well, we saw this just a minute ago, and that didn't exactly work out for them. I think hopefully they'll have learned the lesson that Dimps is not the one they want, but Polaris knows that they're looking for him. Now, if they could get a couple people in addition to Dimps, that would be nice, but a couple of ultimates already expended just for nothing. The Ornhorn once again goes wide. The health bar's not strong enough, but MCZ and Cruci, they're doing quite a bit to keep these health bars low. The ultimate comes down from Dimps to keep the team fight possibility even. Polaris, oh, he knocks down one. He wants to get all of them, though, as the rest of Bush Wookies are trying to run for the hill. There's not enough bushes for them to run to. Hooli gets left and abandoned by Cruci as the kills are coming through. Silvermanes, they're collecting it all. Super minions in the mid lane. They can walk it through, and I think this is the final nail in the coffin, Matrix.
Yeah, still a few members available for the side of Bush Wookies, but Cruci going to die here to Polaris most likely, just not able to get out. Dank Pingu flashing forward for the Nefiri. Taco's not really able to get into this fight. And it was a good look from the side of Bush Wookies, but you need to find either Albi or Polaris, and they're not able to do so. As you called out, multiple ultimates missed, and just so much panic on the side of Bush Wookies, missing all of those crucial abilities. The ace comes out for Demps. Finally able to kill off 3 tacos on that Jarvan.
We are going to be getting a Game 3. Silvermanes tie us up in this series and keep their undefeated streak alive. And yeah, I think for Bush Wookies, that's so unfortunate because they looked so good in their early game. It looked like they were going to be able to close out convincingly into Game 2. The early game was going so good for them, especially in that bot side where the Ezreal was running away with it. But Silvermanes, they did a really good job in showing why they're an undefeated team and why they are one of these teams that you favor for their team fighting and why you respect them. And I think some massive misplays from the side of Bush Wookies that let Silvermanes back into that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a lot of misplays in general, I think, for both of these teams. In the late game, more of the misplays on the side of Bush Wookies. In the early game, more of the misplays on the side of Silvermanes. And very, very need to be very, very careful if you are Silvermanes, because you have shown some weakness. And if you want to hold your playoff spot and carry forward, you're going to need to clean some of this up.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see if they can do it when we get back into this one. We are all tied up in this series. Silvermanes, their undefeated streak hangs into balance, and Bush Wookies, their ability to make playoffs is into balance. We'll figure out which one of these teams is going to be able to walk away with the win. So don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Silver Scrapes right after this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready for draft, and in fact, going to be jumping right into this one. Bush Wookies, Silvermanes all tied up in this one, and I think some people might not thought we would have been here. I think prior to this here, we would have expected Silvermanes to win this handily 2-0, but Bush Wookies gave us a little bit of a surprise in Game 1. Silvermanes fight back Game 2, and now it is Silver Scrapes and Matrix. Interesting to see what draft adaptations we're going to get out of these guys.
Yeah, I need to see some very good drafts coming out of Bush Wookies for game number 3, because Silvermanes looks like they've gotten things back together.
I would agree with that. I think now that the question for me kind of going into this draft is, what do Bush Wookies have in terms of a draft composition that they want to bring out here? Is Thresh going to be their first pickup? I have been vocal about people playing Thresh in the past. I have been proven wrong every single time. Let's see if Bush Wookies can continue that streak of good Thresh play, or will they be the first ones to show the weaknesses of this champ?
Yeah, and more than being vocal about people playing Thresh, I also think that Thresh is not a good priority pick. You really want to pick something that is either highly contested or highly flexible for that first pick. And Thresh, just not it, in my personal opinion. Will be the Braum, though, answer back for the side of Silvermanes. This will be an interesting pickup. Not entirely sure how that lane is supposed to go, but Braum definitely can make things a little bit difficult for the Bush Wookies ADC.
I agree. I think also Braum, especially with paired with the Ashe, given that Seraphine is gone, I think is a great combo. A lot of lockdown and a lot of pressure in that lane as well. It makes it easy to kind of navigate the majority of the 2v2s that you would see there. I think also some of the natural pairings that you would expect to see with the Thresh, more specifically that Caitlyn, is off the board. So for Bush Wookies, I'm curious what they want to pair with it.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting. I'd like to see maybe like a Jinx come out. Could be really good into the Ashe, but of course a little bit disrupted in or by the Braum. A Trundle pickup for the side of Bush Wookies, though, is going to make things a little bit more difficult. Fully tired of playing tanks in the top side, it looks like, but it could also be flexed to jungle, so not entirely sure that that's going to Huli in the top lane just yet.
Well, it gives them a lot of flexibility depending on what they see. I think that Silvermanes is going to want to continue to hold their mid lane pick for last wherever possible, unless they prioritize Polaris getting the counter pick, and they want to see where that Trundle is going, which I think is a pretty good game plan, honestly. I think if you can give Polaris another really good game, especially given what's available for them to pick in that top side, I think that would be helpful. Curious to see if they don't lock in a Mordekaiser here, if they choose not to lock top, whether or not Bush Wookies will ban that out.
Definitely will be interesting to see the Mordekaiser ban come out, but it will be Gnar for the side of Silvermane, so trying to take some of Huli's options away and trying to force that Trundle into the top lane.
Yep. I think that's Silvermane's also trying to make sure that that Trundle goes towards the jungle, because I think Trundle and the Gnar is just such an obnoxious matchup for Trundle. I think there's like even in even his ability to get towards the team fights and, you know, chomp the Gnar and steal away those stats, like the process that you have to go through to get that point is so painful. So I think for Bush Wookies, they're gonna have to make the adaptation to put the Trundle in the jungle and find something that can more evenly go with this Gnar.
Yeah, Gnar going to need a little bit more attention. Polaris definitely able to pilot that champion really well. We are seeing some interesting bans come out. Topside ban focus for the side of Silvermanes in that Rumble, and the Cannon really talking about how good his Rumble has become. So definitely a good look from them to ban that away.
All right, Kennen, Rumble, take it away. So taking up some of those AP top lane threats. I think Silvermanes, their guess on this is that I'm sure that they're feeling they've probably are properly persuaded Bush Wookies to put that Trundle towards the jungle, and so they just want to continue to ban off the top side. And I would agree with that. I think the Bush Wookies are going to make that adaptation. It's just, what are they going to have to lose in trade for it? Because they need to lock themselves in a jungler here.
Yeah, definitely interested to see what the jungle pick will be for Albi. I'd like to see something like the Vi, maybe something a little bit more aggressive. Oh, look at that. 2 for 2 tonight. I've called both the Jinx and the Vi. See what Bush Wookies does elect to go, where they decide to put that Trundle and what they want in the mid lane.
Yeah, my feeling right now with this draft is I think Bush Wookies just got turbo counterpicked a bunch of times. Like, they expose this Trundle pick, they get it forced into the jungle here, which is going to happen, and then like they do get counterpicked by the Vi. I think Vi is a great answer into Trundle jungle. And I think like, ooh, yeah, okay, I'm not a fan of that. Cassante and Gnar, not a fan of that at all. So they're not even really going to get a counterpick in that top side for the side of Huli. I think Gnar absolutely just wins that matchup like an overwhelming amount of time. I don't care what like a stats website says. I think in the hands of a capable player, Gnar is just better. And Bush Wookies are going to have to lock in a mid laner here. They're going to get counterpicked again. So I think they got triple counterpicked on their cores.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Trundle, a decent flex, but good moves by the side of Silvermanes to really force that pick into a particular role. And then kind of forcing Huli onto an awkward pick, something that we haven't really seen him play or really play well in this top lane.
This Azir is going to get counterpicked as well, and I'm thinking of a number of really good champions that can mess with this. I mean, the Cass is going to be kind of one of the first ones you think about. Ryze is another. Syndra is also another champion that'd be really good into this Azir. But the Cass I like a lot just because it's so oppressive in the mid lane. Victor would also be another great champ if they want to lock that in. Lissandra, ooh, okay, not the angle I was thinking. I like that pick. I like what it gives them. Triple Freljordi in stock there. Matrix, some final thoughts?
I do. Freljord, probably my favorite region, so I do like to see multiple Freljord champions coming out for one side, and of course we have the Trundle on the opposing side as well, so kind of interesting lore interesting lore implications there. However, for the side of Bush Wookies, some pretty interesting team fighting coming out for their side. But of course, Silvermane's having some decent team fighting of their own. A lot of engage coming out for the Lysandra, for the Vi, and of course Gnar over the top. Ashe to start that off with a good arrow, and Braum standing beside her to keep her safe. We'll have to see if Bush Wookies can hand stiff, because like you said, they've gotten counterpicked multiple times, and it's really going to come down to how comfortable are they on those champions. Is Jinx able to get those resets? Is Azir able to push some of these Silvermane's players out of the positions that they want to be in order for them to win these team fights?
Well, and I think the other thing I'm concerned for as far as the Bush Wookies are concerned is the amount of lockdown, the amount of reliable CC that Silvermane's has right now with Lysandra and Tomb, plus Ashe Arrow, Vi Apprehend, plus Gnar just being able to throw people in the wall, and like Braum Glacial Fissure. They have a lot of really, really hard commit CC that they can use either to peel or to lock down specific champions. And so I think for the Bush Wookies, especially given the way that these lanes are likely to go, they've got their work cut out for them big time.
Yeah, I think if Bush Wookies are able to crush this bottom lane and put Demps pretty far behind, as well as Pingu on this Braum, could make things a little bit easier for them, especially with Jinx being ahead. But of course, if you fall behind in any of these lanes, it's going to be really difficult for them to find good team fights. Like you said, a lot of lockdown, especially with that glacial prison coming out from the Lysandra, the arrow coming out from Ashe. Of course, Vi are on top of it.
All right, well, we've laid the stakes for both of these teams, and now it just comes down to execution. Bush Wookies, Silvermanes, they are tied one apiece. Silvermanes, they want to keep that undefeated streak alive. Bush Wookies, they'd like to keep themselves in playoff contention. They lose this one, they are likely out. In fact, should be out as long as there's another 2-win team making it in. But they're onto the Rift. And Bush Wookies, you're going to have to show me something. This Thresh is one of these picks that I've been kind of critical of when I've seen a lot of teams play it, just because I think that it leaves, it can leave a lot to be desired from an execution threshold in terms of how it plays, because, you know, a Thresh, if you don't pilot that champion well, you're losing a lot. But every time I've said that, the player that's played the Thresh has been an outstanding player, so we'll have to see, if that continues. MZC, show me something. Show me that you can pilot this Thresh to a win.
Speaking of showing us something, a good pickup from the side of Cruci will be taking that cleanse on the Jinx. I think this is absolutely critical. You're going to need to be able to get out of some of this lockdown that we talked about in draft. Demps able to take the barrier. Still a defensive option.
Just want to see what it looks like to encompass the entire map. The camera's going to wig out a little bit, so we'll just go straight back into zooming on the bot side. I want to talk about something other than junglers getting involved in this early game, because I think both of these champions want to keep their head down and get to level 6. And Three Tacos, I think especially, is going to be focused on trying to get to that dueling state where he could just focus down these neutral objectives. Albi, I think, will be trying to get to the point where he's able to get these effective ganks off. So for me, I think it's going to be more about these bot laners. I think specifically just the 2v2. I think whoever starts to get this early lead, that'll kind of signal the junglers to come down there. And so I'm curious to see how both these teams want to handle that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to see some poke coming out from both of these sides. Jinx, a lot of range on those rockets. Demps, of course, being able to poke out very well with that Ashe passive on top of Pingu's stun, if he is able to land one of those Qs. And a little bit of early push from the side of Bush Wookies is going to be a little bit annoying for them, because Albi is pathing towards this bottom side while Tacos is pushing away. Need to be a little bit careful about playing too far forward.
Yeah, they could signal the early gank. If they get a little too aggressive, the Destiny is going to continue to go wide. Demps and Dinkpinner, they were the first to level 3, but the push is in favor of Cruci. Specifically, they don't have vision on this Vi, so they need to be very, very careful, as you stated. Dinkpinner just going to hold the wave off to the side and help Demps collect it.
Yeah, I think if I'm Cruci here, I really would like to get a little bit of poke onto this bottom lane. Try to discourage the jungler from coming down with his laners being too low. Maybe force a summoner if possible.
Uh-oh. I'm not liking where this is potentially going to go. RX Genetics will be able to get to safety. Does have the flash. Can walk out. 3 tacos. They will place a little bit of damage. Good discipline by RX Genetics. Meanwhile, on the bot side, though, that Flay is going to knock back Albie just a little bit. It is going to get distance underneath the turret, forcing Albie to flash out. Health bars traded for a summoner there as well. And so Silvermans, they were trying to get aggressive there. I liked the pathing out from the side of Albie, but they weren't able to make that stick.
Yeah, absolutely positive for the side of Bush Wookies. 2 different summoners coming out. One from Pingu, the exhaust on the Braum, and Albie forced to use that flash. And really, you want to use that flash aggressively. You want to be able to Q flash, get a little bit of surprise onto someone. RX Genetics, though, handling good pressure in the mid lane, did get ganked twice by Tacos and did not use his flash either time. Gonna feel pretty good about handling that.
Yeah, traditionally it's very difficult to lock down Lissandra in that mid lane, especially once she reaches level 6. Being able to kind of entomb herself, so, you know, buy a lot of CC that way. Plus, once she reaches, once that Zonia's gets built as well, it'll make it really, really difficult to kill Lissandra. So this top lane matchup is going exactly the way that we thought it would. This Polaris is just continuing to punish Hooli at his top side.
Yeah, good moves from Polaris, forcing him off of that entire wave, missing quite a bit of XP and gold on this Cassante. But really, it's kind of the third round of what we've talked about each time is, you know, Hooli is playing more of a tank, does really just want to get as much experience and gold as he possibly can and go even, while Polaris has it all to do on that bruiser. But he showed in that Urgon matchup that he really could, so I'd like to see it again from him on this Gnar.
Yeah. All right, let's play the game of where we think First Blood's going to go down. My bet is it's going to be in that bot side, given what we've seen so far from the series. But I'm curious if you think it'll happen anywhere else.
You know, it's been pretty bot focused in this early game for both teams, and it's been a trade back and forth between both of them. So I think the First Blood, and it has also been on the opposing laner every time.
Yes.
So I will be curious to see if that trend continues. But Taco's up here trying to make it a little bit more interesting, but of course Gnar able to just jump away.
All right, Tempo. Let's see. Okay, they were. I was gonna see if they were to try something on him, but they decided not to.
Yeah, good moves from him, getting away from that potential issue.
He's coming down. No early egress towards this dragon by either champion. Alba's going to be making his way towards his topside camp, so Ping's coming down. They actually do see him, I think, and know that he's there. Will get over, and is going to be there in time to start up this red buff. Is going to get spotted on a ward, so they know that the Vi is taking this one, but chooses not to do anything about it. And so we're 6 minutes in, and no First Blood yet. Both these teams, I think, recognizing what is on the line. And I think for Bush Wookies, don't get me wrong, Silvermans, they do want to protect that undefeated streak. You know, they would like to be at the top of the standings kind of in an uncontested way if they can start to win their last final matchups. But losing for them is not catastrophic in the way that it is for Bush Wookies. Bush Wookies need this win to stay in contention for playoffs in order to make it through, because it's only the top 4 teams. And so I think both these teams recognizing kind of how every little move can have a lot more of a consequence than maybe is intended. And so you've seen an abundance of caution from all these players.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also one of the few full 3 games that we have seen in the league. Most of them going 2-0 in one team or another's favor. The last one that I can remember was Missing Ping Mafia versus Goon Squad, and that one was just an absolute slugfest. Both teams going all out, trying to get as many kills as possible in the game. So kind of a different pace for this game than our last actual full best of 3.
Yeah, it's been nice to see another series go the full best of 3. I think we've just seen a lot of these 2-0 stomps, one way or the other. And it's not to say that the 2-0 games haven't been entertaining, because they have. But, you know, it's different from getting a full best of 3 when you see these teams that are doing really well and contesting one another and fighting. And Speaking of fighting, MCC is going to get this fight snarled off. And Channel Crystal Arrow buys a little bit of space. Dank Pingu manages to hop back a little bit as the Super Mega Death Rocket thrown out to provide just a bit of a chunk damage, but no further follow-up from either team. And now Ping's going down onto the Dragon. Silvermanes, they're going to be happy with that trade so far. A lot of ultimates used. Nobody dies yet.
Yeah, definitely quite a few ultimates used. Both supports... Oh no, excuse me. Dank Pingu not using his ultimate. And we'll have the push that will give Silvermane's priority on this Drake. It will take this first Chemtech Dragon. Be pretty happy with the neutral advantage. Looks like Albi may want to go up to those grubs as well. We'll be interested to see since
well, he can do it.
the Trundle is on that side of the map.
Yeah, I mean, but he can actually do it. Polaris has just kind of like been left on his lonesome here for a while now, and he's in a much stronger state. I think once he gets this recall done, he can look to kind of teleport back to the lane. Vision is going down, so at least 3 Takas and MCZ actually going to lock this down. So there won't be a contest from the side of Silvermanes, just on rotation on tempo. So at least they have that going down. Does Bush Wookies, but I mean Silvermanes. It's just even that we were discussing the possibility that they can go towards that top side and contest them. I think signals to just how well Silvermanes have played this game so far.
Yeah, they've been playing incredibly well. Polaris almost double the CS of his opposing laner. It's definitely showing in the items as well. Genetics and tempo, kind of, both of these games have been very quiet laning phases, not really a whole lot of attention paid towards them, and not really a whole lot of kills coming out from either in terms of, not even solo kills, so.
Yeah. And I honestly, I'm not really sure what I expected out of this early game. I don't think I expected it to be super bloody, but I also don't think I expected it to be this bloodless, especially now 10 minutes into the game. I would have expected to at least see a couple people die, in a random neutral objective fight, or see a top laner get a random kill. But I think the fact that we haven't seen that yet, I think signals to how well both of these teams are at least trying to play the game. And so, I mean, we're fairly even kind of gold-wise. It's, a little bit of a gold lead for Silvermanes. It's obviously nothing to write home about yet. It's not the most significant. I mean, but so for the most part, like, we're somewhat even on CS across most of the lanes. Like, top side, it's a fairly aggressive CS lead for Polaris, but that's being traded in the bot side. Cruci has a significant CS lead over Demps. They're neutral. They're even at neutral objectives. Mostly even itemization right now is, ooh, nice death sentence. This may be the first blood coming out. Dems going to try and land the Super Mega Death Rocket. Dank Pingu tanks it up, manages to get underneath the turret, throws down the Crystal Enchanted Arrow, but it's a little bit too late. Cease and desist going to be thrown out from Albi, but this may just be 2 other quick kills going over towards Bush Wookies as Albi tries to dash on out. RX Genetics is here to provide a little bit of emotional support, but even as I talked about how clean this game was, Bush Wookies get the first kill.
Yeah, MCC finding that death sentence onto the Ashe. Very good positioning from him to be able to find that. Polaris trying to make a trade back on this top side. But good follow-up from Cruci. Was able to get that kill. And I don't know, we'll see. Because the last time it went in their favor, the rest of the game did not. So, will we continue tempo though? We get frozen.
He is going to use the shuffle a little bit defensively, but Hawkshot should just be scouting him out. There will be no further follow of those. He has done at least enough to dissuade Silvermanes from following him any further. And one point I want to make is...
Go ahead. I would have liked to see potentially a flash from RX Genetics. Definitely able to chase down tempo on that Azir, but not knowing where Tacos is, likely a good call from them.
The other thing I will say, too, the point I wanted to make is we've seen, obviously, in the last game where Bush Wookies, they got a nice little bit of early game lead, but we saw Silvermanes really convincingly fight their way back into that game and eventually win it. So I'm not going to be convinced that Bush Wookies has this game anywhere even remotely they're in control until I see the Nexus explode. Because Silvermanes is just one of those teams that because they team fight so well and because they have standout players like RX Genetics and Polaris, like you can never really count them out until the game is over. And also, it's just like Bush Wookies, even with that small fight lead, like they still don't have a significant advantage.
Really finding the correct time to go all out on Polaris, though, on this top side. Wouldn't make it very tough, but Polaris...
doing a really good job sidestepping. And has now invited Albie here, and Huli is now going to try and get out of this one. Will have nowhere to go. Tries to get the solo kill onto Polaris. Not able to do it, so the kill count going to be even up. Polaris inviting his jungler up there to help him out and make sure that they get that kill. And now this matchup goes from bad to worse. As Huli going to be dead, going to be losing out on these minions, the experience, the gold, and is now given over an itemization lead to Polaris.
Yeah, definitely tough for Huli on this top side. That tower getting very, very low as well. And this is kind of what we saw in the previous game, right? Polaris really taking over as soon as he got a lead, making the rest of the game miserable. Oh, Genetics, though.
Oh, nice little fight started off, but let's see where they can get going. Degpengu has knocked down the Jinx, so there will be no Frenzy available as late teleports being channeled here. Polaris now getting involved. What else can he do? This Gnar, we've been counting on him to be the playmaker, the game changer, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Dim's putting the arrows into the backs of so many people, setting up the top laner. It's going to be a triple kill. Polaris is going to make sure Huli doesn't get any closer to that Ashe. It's a quadra kill for Polaris. It's another dragon for them. We've talked about standout players, MVP caliber performances. Well, Polaris just made one of his own.
Yeah, Polaris doing a very good job teleporting down in time to make that play absolutely miserable. Goes from 1 kill to 5 on this Gnar. Did have his first item as well over Huli, and that really makes a difference, especially when you're playing on some of these fighter champions like the Gnar. That really made a difference in that team fight.
Yeah, and now he goes to a completed Trinity Force tier 2 boots. Plus, has got a nice little Warhammer in his, or sorry, a mallet in his pocket. It was almost a Caulfield Warhammer. But yeah, it's gonna be feel really good, and that was kind of what you didn't want. If you're sorry, that's Phage. I don't know why I called that Caulfield's Warhammer. That's Phage. Having a little bit of a stroke, I'm a little bit out of it. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about places you didn't want that gold to go to, it was on Polaris on that Gnar, and now you've made Huli's job in these team fights that much more difficult.
Yeah, and on top of that, already kind of showing what this team wants to do. The good engage from RX Genetics, I was questioning it initially, but it looked a little scary. Genetics just kind of going in by himself, but able to get that Frozen Tomb on the Jinx, meaning she was not able to do anything in that team fight. And then, of course, Albie over the top, and immediately you just lose your ADC. The fight becomes almost unplayable at that point. That's all of your gold lead just absolutely destroyed in a matter of seconds. Dem's trying to do it again, but misses the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. And Christine critically not having cleanse in that team fight means that he is not able to get out of any of that CC as well.
Yeah. Well, this is what we talked about too, that on-demand lockdown for Silvermanes to just isolate one person and make their life miserable. That's what we saw. Cruci getting deleted at the beginning of that fight meant that they had a much more difficult time of trying to get damage down, cutting through, the front line of Albie and Polaris, once he did eventually join that fight. And so no Jinx means that you are missing a lot of your team fighting power. And so I think for Silvermanes, just continue to do that, as Polaris is just going to continue to bully Huli in this top side.
Yeah, already has that first turret down, and that's going to give them priority on this Herald as well, which means more turrets gone, potentially, for the side of Bush Wookies. It's going to be very difficult for them to play out some of these team fights, and they really just need to find Polaris when he's exhausted, when he's on one of these side lanes. Not nearly as much respect.
Nice little knock up there from the side of Degpengu. MCZ, though, plays down the cage to slow everyone up, and so there will be no further follow-up. So nice little play attempt there from Silvermanes, but nothing doing, so they're just going to walk on out. And this is maybe what you highlighted earlier in terms of trying to find a moment to get Polaris down. He's going to go into the Mega Gnar, gets the wallop into the wall. The teleport going to be channeled here for this side of RX Genetics. Polaris just has to last a little bit longer. The chop knocks him down, and now RX Genetics may be on the wrong side of this one. He needs to walk out once to get that Rooted Clone. Manages to get the double kill, so nice trade. 1 for 2 in the top side. It looks sketchy there for a moment, but Silvermanes manages to find a way to make it work. And they even drew out some rotations from MZC and Tempo, and so Silvermane's winning across the map.
Yeah, I mean, a double kill for Genetics, definitely good, but the shutdown onto Polaris is going to give a lot of gold back over to the side of Huli, is able to complete that Iceborne Gauntlet on the Cassante, and that's going to make him a little bit more annoying in the 1v1 matchup, but of course Gnar able to do quite a bit with that completed Black Cleaver. going to be annoying on his own. And a 3K gold lead at 18 minutes for the side of Silvermanes. This is probably one of the smaller gold leads we've seen in this series.
Well, let's see what they can do with it. Silvermane's in a good spot right now. Polaris going to try and collect the golden spot side. However, Ping's coming down. They want to knock down this Gnar. They want to show him that he can't just wander wherever he pleases. His name's not Mundo, and they are going to commit to try and knock him down. Polaris did just go into the Mega Gnar. Leaps out death sentence. All right, so a lot of people just walked up there to try and punish the Gnar and got absolutely nothing for it. And now, Silvermanes, they have taken umbrage at the fact that anybody looked sideways at their top lane in the first place, and will now be escorting the people wearing blue out of their, well, out of the jungle. I was going to say their jungle, but it's not their jungle anymore. His MCC is just going to continue to tagged up. A couple more hits would put him in the stun range of the Braum. Albi's going to knock for it. MCC, you're just getting donated, buddy. Just go ahead and make it your piece with it. Albi's going to collect that one as a nice little group effort. Committed to knock him down. And even though Hulu's going to trade for a turret in the top side, the Dragon, and likely the mid lane turret, going to be given over to Silvermanes.
Yeah, good moves from the side of Bush Wookies, trying to get some gold back for themselves, knowing that they can't really contest with this Drake because they failed that kill onto Polaris, and he is where most of the gold lead is.
Yep.
Not going to be able to secure those turrets just yet, but Huli's going to make it very close.
And
not able to defend on that bottom side, unfortunately.
Not to be disrespectful to Bush Wookies, but my kind of feeling in this game is that I think this is just over for them. Just with how strong Polaris is right now, and given the fact that Silvermanes clearly have recovered from kind of what happened in game number 1 and the early game of, game number 2. Like, they're running around the map. They're doing a really good job. They're going to collect at least one kill here. Tacos can't even really get effectively away. He's just trying to buy a little bit of space. He's going to get God Tempo as well. The Herald's already been claimed over. So for Bush Wookies, I think it's kind of just how bad and how painful do you want this ending to be. It's kind of that expression of, you're going to die. It's just how tired you want to be when you do. And I think that's exactly what we're starting to see here.
Yeah, good plays coming out from the side of Silvermanes. Really, they know. I think the difference here is, last game, Bush Wookies.
Oh my God! Polaris between turrets just knocks down the Jinx. The turret not going to be enough to kill him. The ramping damage isn't enough to finish him off.
Yeah, definitely going to be frustrating. But I think this is the difference between these two teams. Bush Wookies having the lead in the previous game.
Really? Trying to get the kill on Polaris. Do this. Polaris is doing a decent job of putting out some damage. Depends on whether or not Huli wants to go all out. 3 tacos is here. All right, that was a little bit of a disrespectful back positioning from Polaris. Thankfully, he doesn't get punished. I think a more angrier person in that matchup might have committed more heavily to kill him.
Yeah, Huli a little bit too old to be that angry, unfortunately. But as I was saying previously, right, the difference between these two teams, Bush Wookies had the lead in that early game and didn't really make a whole lot of moves to close it out. When Silvermanes are on the opposite side of this gold lead, really knowing exactly what they need to do, what kind of moves, where they need to be at any given time.
Arrow. Oh, that I thought for a brief moment that Enchanted Crystal Arrow was going to hit Ted, but if it did, with Polaris being there, that was for sure a death sentence.
Yeah, definitely going to be a bit harder to hit the Azir, especially if he's paying attention. Does have flash. But you're right. If it does land, it's likely a death sentence for him.
Let's play this fun little game. If you're Bush Wookies, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they are going to try their damnedest to stay in this game, which they are. Obviously, I think we both kind of feel like this game is, I think, just fairly over given the state. But obviously, teams do a good job of sometimes finding a miraculous play. But if you're Bush Wookies, where is your miracle going to happen? Like, who are you sending to deal with Polaris in a game where, yet again, he has gotten out of hand?
I think you have to find Polaris when he's exhausted.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Albi. Ooh, really good access to the back line. Cruci getting knocked up, stunned up. Cruci just trying to buy a little bit of space. Gets stunned up by Arch Genetics. Make sure that Jinx never gets a chance to get going. It's 1 kill, and it's about to be a couple more, as even though an all-out for Huli, not enough to get the damage done. Double kill from RX Genetics. Demps gets over the wall, is followed by Huli. is surviving just for now. Dims with a smidgen of a health bar. Wait a minute, though. Bush Wookies have started to turn this down a little bit. Oh, nice flash by Polaris. Tempo not able to get the Shurima shuffle. Dank Pinko's going to join him. The only one left alive for Bush Wookies. Huli left to see his team die, and now the mid lane turret going to be going down for the side of Silvermanes.
Yeah, a little bit of a miracle play from the side of Bush Wookies there. Not quite exactly what you want to see, but I think definitely a lot better than we would have expected given their gold position in this matchup. Finding good positioning onto Demps. Not really the priority target, but still giving over a decent amount of gold to the side of Bush Wookies. And to answer your question earlier, I really think that Polaris needs to be pushing the top side. He needs to die, and they need to convert that into a Baron. That's really where the miracle play happens.
Let's see if they can find a miracle here in this bot side. As Polaris is going to get spotted out backing yet again, but he's not really in any danger. Bush Wookies, they would like to find something here, but not much being shown to them. And I think for Silvermanes now, it's just the process of slowly working their way back towards into this jungle. And Bush Wookies, I mean, they've had issues. They haven't been able to protect Cruci this entire game. He's been systematically found and killed in all of these team fights. I think credit to Silvermanes on recognizing that that's what they need to do, other than just making sure that they're marking Huli so that he can't get an easy all-out. And even though Silvermanes kind of has early control over this jungle, I don't expect them to keep it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Polaris does have to recall. 10 seconds remaining on this Drake, and if Alba gets caught here...
Yeah, the Dissonance is going to give away that there are, in fact, spooky terrors waiting in that bush, and the rest of Silvermanes, they're going to rotate out around it as Polaris is going to spot this out. MCZ may have been caught. Dank Pinko wants to see if he can start getting this Braum passive going. Nice little Glacial Fissure on a couple people, and it's a huge engage for the side of Silvermanes as they're just going to be thrown all the way back in by Polaris. No one's going to live through this one. It's a triple kill for RX Genetics. It's going to be yet another Dragon pressure in the mid lane and a Baron given over. And Silvermanes, that may have been the last nail in the coffin that they needed to put Bush Wookies away.
Yeah, the Ocean Soul going to be going over it for this team. Going to mean that they can stay out on the map so much longer. Multiple members of Silvermanes trying to push down this mid turret, but too many people respawning too quickly for them to be able to take. Likely the inhibitor will just be a cracking of the base for Silvermanes here, and then they'll rotate over to that Baron.
I actually think great discipline by them to not take that inhibitor because they had plenty of time to knock it down. But with the Baron coming down, they didn't want to give over any kind of early gold right now while there's still pretty good wave clear. And so they want to be able to kind of sync up those waves and then just put Baron pressure across all three lanes. So I actually really like that call to not stick around for that inhibitor.
Yeah, and I think if you're playing the Jinx, you really need to be more aware of your positioning. Cruci getting caught every single time, and it is a little bit on your team to protect you, especially when you're playing this Jinx. And there's so much engage on the side of Silvermanes that you need to be protected from. But at this point, you've had multiple team fights where you're getting caught out. You're the first person to die, and you're not able to do anything. So you really need to kind of position yourself towards the very far back of the team fight. Wait for Genetics to use that Claw, to use that Tomb. Wait for Albi to use his ultimate before you're actually able to do anything. Because realistically, Tacos and Huli have been surviving for quite a while against this team. And if you have the Jinx there to do any sort of damage, you have a much better opportunity in some of these team fights, I feel like. Lars taking a lot of damage from Tempo here on this bottom side.
Yeah. I think some of that damage obviously helped by the fact that the turret was there, but that is going to get knocked down, and so Tempo will have to start to walk away, especially as Polaris is just going to heal himself on up. No, and I think to your point too, like, you know, yes, there is some onus on the team to help protect this Jinx, but you know, the mispositioning, and I think the knowledge of knowing that they are going to spend everything that they can to get you on this Jinx, I think it's something that Cruci didn't really pay a lot of respects to, and I think like there's even ways to abuse that knowledge, because if you know where all of that pressure is going to go to in terms of trying to lock down one champion, then you already know where to position yourself, and you know that once those tools are gone, then you can look to turn a team fight, but just hasn't been respectful of that. And I think also the other half of that equation is hold on, MZC manages to lay distance onto Dimps. That's going to be the Ash going down. The Teleport going to be channeled by Polaris. He's on the back side of this. Do they see a re-engage? As it's going to be the Jinx once again caught out. A huge part of their damage is gone. Two members thrown into the wall. They can't get away from this Gnar. Polaris gets taken out of bounds a little bit by the all-outs from Huli. But this will just be the final nail in the coffin. Matrix, this is the last little bit they needed. They're going to walk the minions in. They're going to put an end to this game. Silvermanes, they may have lost the first game, but they come back with a nice 2-0 response. They pushed us to Silver Scrapes, and they're going to continue their undefeated streak. They're going to put the final damage into the Nexus. They're going to make sure if they can get tacos, that would be nice, but they won't need them. The Nexus is going to explode, and Silvermanes advance to 4-0.
Yeah, with a 12k gold lead and almost 15, well over 15 kills. In response, getting.
Nope. I seem to have lost him.
It definitely looked like they were coming back into their form, and that's exactly what we need to see from this team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I fully agree. I lost you there for a second, but then it all caught up all in 1 second. So no, you're good. We got you back. But no, I mean, I fully agree, and I think commiserations to Bush Wookies. They really did show us a good series, especially in games 1 and 2. I think this third one was probably one of the biggest differences from kind of start to finish across either team. But I mean, the components are there for Bush Wookies to continue to be a really good team that they could develop. It's just late in the season, they're trying to get another win. They're going up against some of the hardest teams, and Silvermanes, I think, just really well outfought them, did a fantastic job in staying scrappy in that entire series.
Yeah, definitely don't want to see the Garen for Polaris anymore. I think that did not work out for them, but good job from Bush Wookies to take a game off, giving some information over to these other teams at the top of the standings on potentially how to beat the Silvermanes team. We'll have to see if either BBC or Baggy Pampers can utilize this in a later matchup, but for now, GG's between both teams.
Yeah. We are going to toss it to a very short break, and when we come back, we're going to have an interview with a victorious member of the Silvermanes. We're going to have Polaris with us, the top laner extraordinaire, so don't go anywhere because we've got an interview coming right up. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back live. We are joined by Polaris, the top laner for the Silvermanes. Hey, man, tell us how you're feeling. You guys have advanced to 4-0. You've knocked another team out of the playoffs contention. It was a close series within the first 2 games, but you guys had a convincing return in game number 3. Walk us how you're feeling.
I'm feeling great. My fucking heart is pounding out of my goddamn chest. Hooli brings out the best of me, brings out the worst of me. Bush Wookies fucking took us the distance, dude. Amazing team. I hope they stay together. I hope they continue playing together because next split we play, I mean, they're going to be pretty huge for contention. So, yeah, amazing team. I'm super proud of my team too. Albie, Troy, Dims, Kai, we come together, we played as 5. First game was pretty rough. I egoed the Garen pick, which I did absolutely nothing on it except press E and clear waves. But no, they played super well first game, front to back. They played their comp perfectly. They were able to catch us out. They were able to maintain their tempo. Literally. So no, I'm feeling great. I'm really happy with this match.
Talk to me a little bit about what the comms were like after that game number 1. It definitely seemed like in the early game, you guys were a little bit frustrated with some of your moves, but you did find some good catches kind of towards the later stages of the game. Were able to bring it back. So how were some of those comms going from like the beginning of the game to the end in game number 2?
Yeah, so before we got into game 2, I mean, mentals were being mental. We were all pretty forced. We were very focused on what mistakes we made, and instead we were like, okay, at the end of the day, we got to draft if that's 100% what it is. So let's go back to our roots. Let's play our champs. I mean, I was able to get Urgot. They left it open again. I knew they were egoing it, and so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play my champion. At some point, these teams are gonna fucking learn. I'm just kidding. But, Albie got his Viego. Troy got his LeBlanc. Bot lane, we played a mage bot. Early game was pretty rough, but we have a very good team where everyone's just trying to keep everyone else's mental in check. And so we were able to just capitalize on little solo kills here and there, take an objective as we could, and we were able to snowball it. So...
Walk me through the game 3 draft. Obviously, that Trundle pick comes out really early, and then it looks like you guys kind of quickly identify that you can start to kind of force that around. Maybe it's a top lane pick, but you're able to force it into the jungle based on what you guys pick. Were y'all prepared for that draft as far as where that went, or was that like an on-the-fly adaptation?
Yes. We were 100% prepared. So Albie, in addition to being one of the best junglers in the league with his amazing vocals, he's also excellent at drafting. We knew the Thresh and the Trundle were both going to come out for Bush Wookies first. We had already prepped for it. When they locked in Thresh, we insta-locked Braum. We just played a supplemental ADC to go off of that. When we saw the Trundle, we figured that's kind of like what his comfort is going into this third game. You know, it's a one-on-one sweat fest. Everyone's going to go back to their comfort pick. So we knew the Trundle was going to come out. We were actually really scared going into picking Gnar third instead of the Vi because we thought that they may ban that champion because Albie, at this point in the draft, you know, Albie's going to have to default to Vi. So we were really happy when we saw that they didn't ban it. They didn't ban it. He was able to pick it up, and then the Lissandra was just a cherry on top. You know, not exactly an answer to the Azir, but as an answer to our own comp's needs in terms of just pick and counter engage.
Yeah, we saw you guys hover the Casio, and we were definitely talking about how that would be an interesting pickup. But I'm definitely glad you guys went for the Lissandra. You guys were able to lock down that Jinx super hard with the Lissandra and the Vi working together. And honestly, the team communication in that game number 3 looked absolutely incredible. You guys were all on point. You were finding the correct pick at the beginning of the fight, and then you just able to run over the rest of it because there was no damage left.
Yeah, no. We just knew what targets to go on. A lot of the fights, I was attacking the wrong target, and Albie told me focus this champion, and so he was able to redirect me. That's what happened in that dragon fight. I was autoing Trundle. He told me to get on Jinx. So, but yeah, no, this is a pretty bread and butter comp for us as well. Just a lot of comfort across the board. Yeah, once we got into the flow of winning the second game, I mean, the third game was just maintaining that momentum, trying not to go for too crazy of plays, but playing off of the picks and the potential of our comp as we see it. So I'm really, really happy with how game 3 went. And again, game 1, game 2, even a lot to learn, a lot to VOD review from. Silvermane still has a long ways to go in terms of facing the top two seeded teams. I also think the Rose team coming up is another strong contender for the 4th spot. I think if they get into playoffs, they may upset a lot of teams, including us. They did not have the comp that they had when we played against them in our first week, so it's one of the teams that we're definitely afraid to match up against as well.
You brought that up, so I'll kind of segue into that. You guys talked about or you just talked about your kind of your positioning as far as the other top teams. Obviously, you're sitting at 4-0. There's really only a difference of just one game loss. Obviously, your undefeated record in terms of games just got usurped, but you're still 4-0 in the series. So that puts you kind of in the same breath as BP and Big Bird Club. Obviously, you guys are a lock for the playoffs now. What is y'all's expectation as y'all kind of look towards the postseason?
So getting into playoffs, I mean, the fearless getting to 3 games shows a lot of weaknesses for teams, and I think what a lot of teams are running into is just champ pool diff. I think what we're going to be focusing on is getting our champ pool expanded as much as possible, maybe creating more flex picks. But it's just going to be, you know, we have a winning formula, just trying to maintain that, not trying to change too much, but you know, try to change the way we play the game, put more bot centric comps into play and just expand our champion pools, and I think we'll be able to give the other teams a run for their money.
All right, well, we really look forward to that. Anyone else you want to shout out on your team specifically?
I want to shout out Dimps. If Huli has a monk mental, this guy has every monk in the world's mental. Doesn't matter what happens in lane, doesn't matter how many times he's caught out, doesn't matter how well he plays or how well he doesn't play. He's always consistent. He's always showing up. He's always communicating. He's always landing the abilities when he needs to, being that supplemental damage when we need to. A lot of the series we've been playing recently, he's been popping off. I just want to give him a very strong shout out. I think going into playoffs, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Awesome. Well, Polaris, thank
Hell
you
yeah.
so much for taking the time to give us an interview. Congratulations to you and your team on not only retaining your undefeated streak as far as the series is concerned, but also making it to the playoffs. So get out of here, go celebrate with your team. We look forward to seeing you guys in the postseason, and look forward to the really spicy matchups with all of the other undefeated teams as we get to that postseason.
Sounds good. Love you guys.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
All right, Matrix, final thoughts before we close this out for tonight.
You guys should absolutely come check out our socials on Twitter and TikTok. And of course, watch us again on the VODs that are coming out later.
Probably
We
tomorrow.
definitely would love to. And if you're not in the Discord, why not come check us out? Discord GG loading screen.
Yeah. We have our matchup tomorrow. As Matrix just mentioned, we will be streaming tomorrow and Friday. He will be handling that cast on Friday. It'll be a dual cast between me and him tomorrow. Blacklist versus Goon Squad. So come out there, support us, support these teams. But that's going to do it for us tonight. We thank y'all so much for spending your time with us and for working with us on the delay that we had on the stream. Obviously, we had to get that restarted because of the Riot Client stuff, but we got that figured out, and we appreciate y'all's patience. But that's going to do it for us tonight. So thank you so much for spending time with us, for cheering on the teams, and for agreeing to come tomorrow, because clearly you guys are going to be here for the stream tomorrow as well. So, but until then, we will bid you a fond farewell. Bye-bye.